Big news. I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Darren's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Happy Friday, Sandy.
Good morning, Blake. Good morning, Darren.
Hello.
How you doing?
How are you? I'm fantastic. How are you guys?
Good. What you got for us this morning?
Okay, well, the international scene is heating up with a lot of countries weighing in on what's happening with Ukraine and Russia, including the Cayman Islands, who have said, really, the premier issued a statement to say, brace yourself for what most of us are probably most concerned about, not the humanity of it all, which
Higher prices.
High prices, yes. How is it going to impact us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I realize it is a selfish position, but it's also a very realistic position because immediately as Russia began its attack on Ukraine, the price of oil went up $100 a barrel, and I don't know what it is this morning, but I'm sure it's going to continue to rise because of these actions. So the premier basically trying to prepare people to be somewhat realistic about what is coming your way. In addition to that, China has decided it's going to get into the fray a little bit. It was caught yesterday in Taiwanese airspace, sending some fighter jets to Taiwan. And this is not looking good because it looks like what China is thinking is, the rest of the world is going to be occupied in Europe. Why don't we start something in Asia? And they won't have time to stop us because most people accept that the US in particular could not take on two superpowers, China and Russia at the same time. And literally, sorry?
The U.S. isn't really taking on Russia as far as troops, but we probably would get involved with China in Taiwan.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a different situation.
A little different, yeah.
And especially if anyone jumps over to a NATO country, then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the truth of the matter is here,
it was like
if China and Russia decide to move forward with what they're look like they're going to do, we could be looking at what would be pretty close to World War. I don't know what the definition is. I wasn't alive during the last World War, so I don't know what the definition is of a world war, like how many countries are required to be in the mix for it to actually be a world war. But I think a lot of people have a sense that we could, the tipping point isn't that far. So everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen.
I think a lot of people are always on edge. Don't run out and buy all the toilet paper just yet, okay?
Yeah.
The UK has also issued a statement as well, basically saying that they're not prepared to sit back and do nothing, that, they will take action against Russia. I think for now, a lot of countries are actually freezing assets. That's the action that they're taking. So they're trying to avoid military intervention if at all possible.
Yeah, that's what will escalate.
A world war is described online as a war engaged in all or most of the principal nations of the world.
Okay. Huh.
I mean, it takes a little bit of escalation.
50%?
Like, Franz Ferdinand. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're at World War. Listen, it's a lot. There's a lot trying to be avoided as going into combat right now. They're trying to, because you can't escalate the situation by sending troops in and, then another country's involved.
Yeah.
I can only know what I've heard people experts talk about on the news for way too long yesterday.
Well, Ukraine is not a NATO country, so you can't really jump in there with U.S. troops or British troops.
So unfortunately, you do have to wait for sanctions to kind of kick in, and it's not. Immediately it did hit their stock market, and they're up there trying to buy rubles and make it better over there, but you just got to wait it out right now. And everyone jumping to conclusions and thinking, because I know that everyone's stressed after COVID and everyone thinking, okay, this is the end. It's terrible for our Ukrainian friends. It's terrible for all them. Yeah. Yes. But everyone jumping to conclusions is going to cause mass hysteria and maybe do something that's not right. But what are we doing about the money that's here in the Cayman Islands?
Well, the international forces have said that their position is going to be diplomatically, which obviously hasn't worked, politically, which probably hasn't worked, economically, and eventually military. So military will be the last option, but they're trying to freeze assets. So I'm assuming, one of the things that Putin was doing was trying to reassure the general public, as well as, most importantly, businessmen in Russia, that the economy will not suffer, that they're going to be great and fantastic. And he had a huge meeting with a lot of the top businessmen in Russia to reassure them that this was the right decision. And in fact, it looks like, despite him telling people that the Russian people are in favor of this, that's probably not the case, because they were out protesting. And over 1,700 of them were arrested yesterday. Because, it was interesting. I was watching some of the interviews, and a lot of Ukrainians are related to people in Russia. It's like they're almost one people, really. And, there was a lady she was there with her daughter, whose grandfather is living in Ukraine. She hasn't seen him in 3 years because of the pandemic. And they're like, this is just crazy. We're fighting our own people. And we do not want this, despite what Vladimir Putin has said. So
we were just talking this morning, UEFA has moved the Champions League soccer final that was supposed to be in St. Petersburg to Paris now.
Yeah.
So it was to be in Russia. Now it's moved.
Yeah. I mean, I think economic sanctions could have, Russia obviously has, I think, natural gas and to their advantage, but I think economic pressure could have a lot of impact, because, his people that matter the most to him, which are probably the people with money, will try to put their foot down and say, hold on a second, we're not up for this.
That's what's going on. I mean, it seems like a lot of people were surprised he even went this far. So it's kind of a one-man show over there that we all knew.
Well, apparently, now that people have seen the response, they're saying this is something he's been planning for quite some time. This is not a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, sure.
Wake up last week.
I mean, he's been in power for 20 years.
Months. Yeah, this has actually been a months-long, at least, plan. I figure probably after his BFF, President Trump, didn't get back in, he said, what the heck? Interestingly enough, President Trump was actually praising him yesterday.
Interesting. That's not interesting. That's typical. And it's ridiculous, because that guy has lifted him up for the last 4 years and helped create a situation where we just give over Crimea. Now he thinks he can go and take the rest.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyway,
in other news, the Census 2021 results are out. So
yeah,
good news for us. Now we can get an idea. And it had a good participation rate. It was something like 97%, essentially. Which is still quite a few households. I think they said over 9,000 households. But yes, this is good news for us. We're going to be delving into some of the details. But of course, Bodden Town, the eastern districts remain the fastest growing districts, which I think we've known for a minute. But of course, when you have census data to actually confirm what you suspect, that's always a good thing. And
well, it's the only districts that can really grow, because we've kind of grown out of room here.
Yeah, totally. And now what does it change? So vaccination rates, does that change our vaccination rates? Because everyone's like, well, we can never tell if it's 80% of the population.
Yeah, 69,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were working off of 65,000 in any event. So the population is 69,656 is where they're at. So we've got 69,350 in households and 306 in prisons, dormitories, and retirement homes. So yeah.
Okay.
Cocoa Fest is this weekend. Go and enjoy yourselves, folks. De-stress out at Pedro Castle. It's always a fun event. And yes, one more thing I wanted to say.
Everyone needs to know it's Jasmine's Flag Day today.
That's right.
We need to keep pushing that out there. So
yes, I was going to actually just say that.
That's hilarious.
In terms of NPOs, obviously Jasmine is a well-needed and wonderful organization, and they're having their drive. So folks, get what you can, get volunteers out. You can still do that. Get a team together and go out and help this wonderful organization who's looking to do some fundraising. So, a lot of NPOs need our help in raising operational funds. And, they do such an amazing job being there as a team of support for others. So Davenport is a major sponsor. So it's Flag Day for them, where they're going to be collecting donations that cost you less this Saturday. And then basically Davenport is going to double the donations that are collected. So the more you collect, the more money they'll get in the end.
Yeah,
so
and if anyone has known anyone that needs hospice care, it's such a needed organization, and they do hard work. It's it's not easy emotionally for that kind of work, and so they do a great job.
Yeah, all right, Sandy, have a great weekend.
All right, folks, thank you.
We'll see you on Monday.
All right, have a great weekend.
You too.
All right, folks, lots of stuff kicking off this morning. We're going to get to the international crisis in Ukraine, but we got a little bit of a crisis here in the Cayman Islands I want to talk about. This whole situation with jobs and the lack of, I had a comment here from Frank Chillen this morning, which is very, very interesting. Frank essentially said, you guys need to stop complaining as Caymanians about wanting jobs only. This is not a Caymanian only country. We're here to stay, and we are proud as foreign nationals. Adopt us if you want or not. We're not going anywhere, and you need us. Let's break it down, because it's very, very interesting. I've said on this program before, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So are Frank's comments spot on? Is he correct? We shall find out. All right, so give me one quick second. I'm actually going to take a break. We're going to do intro music. We're going to send out all notifications so that everybody in WhatsApp knows that we are here and live. And then we'll dive deep into the conversation.
You're now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
All right, folks. Welcome back to the program. Happy Friday to all of you. Let me not forget my Caymanian manners. We don't want to be like some persons who think they're an expert in all things Cayman Islands because they've been here for a minute. Good morning, Miss Virtuous Pinook. Good morning, Marshall, Olivia, Anne-Marie, Diamond Princess, Dan. So, no, it's a short question, but we'll get to that in a second. Carmelie, good morning, Miss Brenda. We'll talk about Russia in a minute, but I want to talk about something local first, which is this comment that we received about Caymanian jobs. So, this is a conversation that we're not going to ever be done with, I suppose, at the end of the day, given where we are in the large scheme of things. And more importantly, not just where we are, but where we seem to be going. Miss Wee Wee, Larry, good morning. Sabrina, Jonathan Powell, you wait for it. Carol, yes, Carol says Cayman does not need him or his 20-story buildings. We're going to talk about it. And Jackie, John, Louie, and Felicia. So it's interesting. Listen, I don't know Frank from the Man in the Moon. And I always say that because I think sometimes people think, well, maybe Sandy doesn't like a particular person and that's why she'll take a particular position. I honestly, most people that we end up talking about in this program, I actually do not know. If you know anything about me, I'm actually a very private person in my personal life. I keep my space very, very tight. I'm trying to think if I've ever even met Frank. I have seen him out and about. I've seen him driving around town in his, I can't remember which fancy car it was, but it was one of the cars. And I messaged him because I thought, wow, it's actually a nice car. I don't know if it was the Ferrari, the Lamborghini, the whatever. Listen, Frank is who he is. I enjoy looking at him from a distance because he lives the kind of life that most people could only ever dream about. The traveling, the private jets, the Louis Vuitton luggage, and this kind of lifestyle. And I think it's always interesting, for me anyway. I do like to people watch, and sometimes I people watch people on social media. And Frank is one of those people that I actually enjoy people watching because the lifestyle is so in excess in a way that it is interesting to think, wow, people actually live like that, like for real, right here in the Cayman Islands. You order a new car every 6 months or whatever, and that's a thing to just spend money on cars. That's fantastic, I guess. But here's my thing. I always find it quite interesting when people, especially people of a particular means, I don't hear them wanting to discuss social issues, right? So it's so incredible that Frank made this comment. Let me put it in context, by the way. So let me tell y'all, because some of y'all are like, what the hell is Sandy talking about? Let me show you the initial message that kind of kicked off the discussion. And then we can see Frank's comment. And then I'll start to make more sense to you, I'm sure. So this comment yesterday, I received numerous times from individuals who were like, Sandy, WTF here, what's going on? Basically, this is someone posting in I think the original group was a buy and sell group or something. It was weird where they were posting it on Facebook. But anyway, I guess like an online classified sort of thing. And they said, I'm a Canadian resident looking to relocate to the Cayman Islands. Oh, some of us are thinking, well, aren't you all? I mean, honestly, I've done a bit of everything in life, from retail sales, healthcare to bottle service. So jack of all trades and a master of none, essentially. I have a Canadian education and I'm looking to start a life in Cayman. I would need a work permit. Yes. I've been trying to get a job for a year now with no luck. If anyone could be of help, please send me a message. Thank you. It's interesting because Caymanians, as we all know, those of you who are actually Caymanians, do get a little bit offended when you see these posts. And I actually understand the logic behind it. And I get it. Because, it's just one of those things where how is it possible that someone could, and then the response right away from, I don't know who the hell Nikola Mirov is. I think someone told me that she is from some country that came by way of Dubai or something. I don't even know how people get here. Listen, it is a very interesting world where people can, just jump on a plane and get here from wherever. That's the world that we live in. I'm not knocking that in any way, shape, or form. What I do think is interesting, there's a couple things that's interesting about this particular message. Number one, a non-Caymanian who is in a position evidently to give somebody a job has quickly replied and said, oh yes, this is the first message. Send me your CV. Now, I don't know where Nicola works. Did anybody, she said she can get her job in food and beverage. Anybody ever figured out where Nicola actually works? Because if she works at some place like the Ritz or the Kimpton or these other places that I continually on a daily basis hear complaints about, they're not hiring Caymanians, I would be concerned. One guy named Todd, in response to this, even said that, Foster's is hiring. Foster's Food has jobs posted online. You can look at EK Trade under jobs. My God. Listen, this is the thing, folks. If it is that easy to find a job, and I want to show you Frank's comment, and then we can talk about it. So this is Frank responding on Instagram. He got a lot of likes, 48 people. I'm willing to bet probably 2 of those are Caymanians, but he says Caymanians need to stop worrying about posts like this. You see, that's easy for Frank to say when you drive around in a Lamborghini and you can switch out a different car every day of the week. Not just a different car, but a different luxury car. So Frank, I hope you're listening this morning because you need a little bit of a reality check, okay? So that's a really easy statement to make, and it's the kind of statement that puts people off because people recognize that you probably wouldn't really understand the context of what you're saying in this environment. Now, I don't know where else, but in this environment, it's off. Not entirely, but he says, stop the crabs in a barrel mentality. Wow. Okay, I want to come back to that phrase in a second. Majority of your points aren't valid. Really? Foreign workers can most definitely get, what do you say? Foreign workers can definitely get government jobs, work in banks and start businesses. And then those work permits are valid for a portion of time during which no Caymanian can enter said jobs. Oh, my apologies. I was like, what the heck? I'm reading the wrong one. My apologies. Skip back up to Frank. That was the response to Frank. Yeah, sorry. He says, no Caymanian want those jobs locally because they can get better jobs working for government, for banks, and by starting businesses here. Foreign visiting workers cannot do that, and they add value and dynamism to our economy. In other words, dynamism. This Caymanian only dynamic is incredibly harmful to our economy and must stop. We are better than this. We are better than this. It's interesting. Frank has Caymanian status already, I'm assuming, why he's using the term we are better than this, because he's clearly identifying with being a Caymanian and that he understands the journey of a Caymanian. I may give Frank a little bit of advice. If you do have status, which I'm assuming with your bank account you probably do, because it's easy to get status when you have money in this country, let's be honest. I would still be cautious saying that we, as though you truly understand the position of the average Caymanian. Now, I know you don't hang out with the average person, Frank. Let us be very clear here. I'm willing to bet you've probably never been to Windsor Park. That's the average Caymanian, really. You need to read that census. We're going to be going through it next week, but you need to read the census. The average Caymanian is not the persons that you hang out with, that I've heard you hang out with at the steakhouse, like the Mario Rankins of the world. Mario sits down on a podcast and he pretends to be average, but yet, you know, he's the kind of guy himself who wants to be like you. He only wants to drive around a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, or whatever. That's not the average Caymanian. The average Caymanian could never in a million years go to a government bank and borrow $1 million and never pay back. That's not the average Caymanian, right? So I'm going to give Frank a little bit of a pass here, because I suspect, because of his own experiences and the people that he hang out with, he doesn't quite understand the Caymanian position, because he's hanging out with people who are not the average Caymanian, business people who own luxury, buildings, and, they own tons of property. They're multimillionaires. They do not, when you talk about we, they're not normally included in that we conversation, because they can't speak to the struggles of actually having to find employment. They're multi-generational Caymanians, perhaps, who've had the benefit of forefathers who set them up in life. It's interesting to me that, we post a lot on Instagram. Gosh, I've lost count of how many things we posted. And I could count literally on one hand the number of times that Frank has ever commented on anything. Now, I know he watches a lot. Big shout out to his son, Leo. Leo's a super fan. We posted 12,230 posts since we've had an IG account dating back to, I think, 2018 was when we launched our Instagram account. CMR started in 2017, and we waited about a year to launch Instagram, right? So, Frank, how many posts have you ever commented on? How many of the social issues facing this country have you ever been moved by enough to comment on? Like the sexual abuse in this community, the violence, the mental health issues, the poverty. There's tons of social issues that Cayman is struggling with. And I cannot help but wonder why I've never seen you comment on any of those as areas of concern. I'm just saying. If you're going to have a degree of boldness to tell Caymanians that they must stop being crabs in the bucket, which, by the way, I had to wonder if you really knew what that mentality meant. Because the Caymanian would never apply that analogy of being a crab in the bucket to a situation like this. Because you see, you're missing a key component of understanding what crabs in the buckets are. Crabs in the buckets are when your own people, you see, this is now where a little bit of the local, I know colloquialism isn't the right word, but the local feel of a phrase even is essential. And you're using the phrase, but you don't quite have it correct, because a Caymanian wouldn't use that to describe going to America and, all of a sudden I'm a crab in a bucket because I'm fighting against Americans for jobs. It's a Caymanian against Caymanian mentality. And that's not what the situation is. This is a Canadian national who's saying that they're overseas, they want to come here. So we're not fighting on our own. So technically that crab in the bucket mentality quote makes no sense, but you're a Caymanian. So I want you to get up to par as quickly as possible on all the Caymanian lingo and truly understand it so that you can really be one of us. We need to go down to Windsor Park, Frank. Come with me for a day. Let's go Dog City, Windsor Park, Swamp. Let's hang out in Bodden Town Central. Let's sit under the coconut tree. Let's sit on the beach with these guys and play a little game of dominoes. I don't drink, but you can have a beer, whatever it is they're drinking these days. Let's have some crab backs and some stew kunk. And these things are really Caymanian because, as a Caymanian, you should try to engage in and understand some of these things. So the nugget of truth in what you said is that there are some Caymanians who want government jobs. They think that that's the holy grail. And yes, Maybe some have wanted to be in banks, but you see, this is where you come to the Cayman Islands and you hear a particular rhetoric. It's almost like hearing that Caymanians are lazy. And then you adopt that rhetoric for yourself. And you go around repeating that rhetoric. Oh, yeah, all Caymanians are lazy, or majority of Caymanians are lazy. Majority of Caymanians only want government jobs. They want to be in air conditioning, cushy jobs, and blah, blah, blah. Well, Frank, if you would hang out with me for a minute instead of wannabe rich people, wannabe rich Caymanians specifically, you would know that the dynamics of what's happening in Cayman Islands has changed a long time ago, probably even before you got status. And there are a lot of individuals, I get phone calls from them every single day, who would love to have a job opportunity in a bar, in a restaurant. They want jobs at the Ritz-Carlton. In fact, just yesterday, I think it was yesterday, the day before, I got a message saying, oh, the Ritz is bringing back all the foreign workers. And here I am as a Caymanian wanting to work in that environment. So we're not here to hate on Frank. We're just here to educate him. So, Frank, the one thing about your statement that is absolutely incorrect, amongst other things, is that Caymanians do not want jobs in these industries. This isn't true. And this isn't about a Caymanian-only mentality. That is the one thing that really stuck out in my mind about Frank's comment. It is, listen, Caymanians know our population size. We are well aware of our limitations, and no one has ever in a million years said that we are all about Caymanians only. Never, ever, ever. And Frank, did you pass a test to become Caymanian, by the way? I mean, I think it's just a paper test that is so stupid. But, try to immerse yourself in the Caymanian culture. Speak to old-time Caymanians to get a sense of what you're even saying. Because the truth of the matter is, one of the reasons why Caymanians feel particularly perturbed about situations like this is because we have always been a very welcoming community. That's why you had people here who could come in and integrate and start businesses, such as yourself, by the way. Let's be very honest, right? In a safe environment, you could start up your little music gig where you're offering music services to I don't know, you were a producer, whatever. By the way, whatever happened to that? I know some of those young Caymanian guys were complaining that you weren't really treating them the best because they're Caymanians, apparently. Are you still doing that? Are you still producing any local artists, or does that have fallen by the wayside? Listen, we embrace people from all over the world. That is why an island with the square miles that we have here, whatever it is, 20-something square miles, has over 130-something nationalities. If we were about Caymanians only, I assure you that would not be the case. We have a lot of diversity in this community, and we embrace diversity. What we don't embrace, and this is where I want to be extremely clear, is we do not embrace favoritism for foreign nationals first. So it's not Caymanians only, it is a Caymanian first mentality. And those are two very, very different things. And I want to be, again, very, very clear about what the difference is because, Frank appears to have missed it. Caymanian first is this, Frank. If a job is available, and if a Caymanian wants the job and they are qualified for the job, they should get the job above anybody else. There's nobody that should be sitting in Canada, Timbuktu, the UK, Jamaica, or any place else that is going to go, right, I want to come to the Cayman Islands and I'm going to jump on the next airplane and get here and get a job. And there are Caymanians waiting in the unemployment line who actually do want to work. I'm not talking about the percentage that don't want to work because, listen, even I have to admit that there are some people who fall into that category. But that's not who I'm talking about. There's lots of hardworking Caymanians and people who want to work. Just last week, I was talking about, it was on Monday, the days are melting together. I was talking about someone in Jamaica who messaged me on Saturday and said, oh, I want to move to the Cayman Islands. How do I do so? And I'm like, well, you need an employer who actually has work for you. And by Sunday, the very next day, they messaged me back to say, oh, yeah, someone's taken out a work permit for me. And I'm like, but do they actually have work for you? Because those are two very different things. So we live in a community, Frank, and this is the point of the post. It wasn't about Caymanians only. It's about a community, a local community, a Caymanian population that is feeling more and more that the only way actually for you to get a job in this country is to be a foreign national and to have a foreign passport. And then you're all the way at the top of the list all of a sudden, just because of those things. Not because you're any more qualified, as we saw from the Stake Social post on Monday as well. This person sitting in a restaurant bragging about how they got a job over a qualified Caymanian. And that's where we have an issue. We are very welcoming. I mean, look at the number of what permits we're approving every single day. This isn't about that. Caymanians have welcomed, oh my God. Just take a look at some of the diversity. And the names and the skin colors and the backgrounds of the people now. And you can look a couple generations back and realize that it was open arms. This is way before my day. I wasn't even born yet. But back in the 60s, people hanging out at Moritz, we were accepting the Bergstroms, the Sotos, whoever came here, wherever they came from. A lot of Caymanians now, second generation Caymanians, their people are from Jamaica, right? Hamity wasn't originally a Caymanian. He wasn't born in Caymanian soil. He's from Jamaica. He was a Jamaican pilot. We welcomed him here, and now he has one of the most successful local rum cake businesses in the Cayman Islands. So it's actually quite insulting, I must tell you, Frank, for you to tell Caymanians that we're all about a Caymanian only mentality, and that we're not welcoming of other people, and we need to stop this dialogue. It is completely ridiculous, right? If we can ensure that every Caymanian who wants to work in this community, who has a job, the overall connectiveness in the community would be so much greater. I agree with you that diversity, well, you say dynamism, sorry. I agree that diversity is important. And we have a lot of it. Like I said, if you look around, the statement isn't really true because, I go into restaurants all the time. The majority of the kitchen staff are not Caymanians. We don't have the population really to support everyone working in those industries. So we have been welcoming people. I think what people are now really, really tired of is seeing these types of posts on social media where Nicola can say, oh yeah, it's easy to get a job here. Just send me your resume and I can help you out in food and beverage. The other thing that most of us realize, Frank, that maybe you missed, is that this is not just food and beverage. So it's not just about the jobs that Caymanians, you say, don't want. It's even happening in government. Right? Caymanians are getting passed by. And foreign nationals who are less qualified are getting the jobs. Frank, talk to me about this Canadian guy, interesting enough, Canadian, who got a job. I'm drinking coconut water and I've got a piece of coconut stuck on my lips. Sorry. Talk to me about this Canadian guy who came to the Cayman Islands and who was less qualified, right, than 3 Caymanian women and still ended up getting the job. You can talk to me and explain that to me, and how we must sit back and say nothing and do nothing when we see situations like that happening. They're becoming more and more the norm. In corporate Cayman, the same thing that you see happening here in food and beverage is happening in corporate Cayman, all the way from the top, all the way down. So this isn't about, oh, we don't want those jobs. This is about this attitude in this position of, as a foreign national, you've got people here who are going to be looking out for you and give you a job just because you're a foreign national, that's a problem. And that is where Caymanians take issue. So I really hope, Frank, that you've had an opportunity to educate yourself a little bit so that you could see why someone like myself would read your comment and be insulted. I want you to comment the next time I publish something about a child molester. I want you, Frank, and all your power and money to say, this is horrible, this is wrong. Let's advocate for a sex offenders registry. Let's advocate for change. I'm willing to donate some money to Big Brothers Big Sisters, even if I can't be one myself. I'm willing to donate to some of these NPOs that really do a great job assisting young, troubled Caymanians. You own a company here, Frank, that is not food and beverage or whatever. How many Caymanians are hired in that organization? I know you've hired some, because I know Julie Hurlston used to work for you. Who else? She's only a Cayman that I knew, but I'm sure you've hired others. You know, how easy is it for a Caymanian to get a job in your organization? Qualified Caymanians. Who's your HR manager? You know, prove us wrong. Prove us wrong that the majority of people that you have hired for you in Uniregistry are actually Caymanians. Because, you know, Carol says, very interestingly enough, even she's offended by your comment. I think you got to be, you know, listen, you're a businessman in this community and you want to, obviously you've invested a lot of money. You bought prime real estate in Georgetown, Monaco Towers, you got Starbucks downstairs, you got a lot of people renting your space. I think if you really want to truly integrate in a community that is this small, you could be doing a better job of that. I don't think you're really doing a great job of that. Give us a call. I'll be happy to ride around with you. I'm no expert, because you know what? I lived in another man's country for 15 years. So I missed out on 15 years of Caymanianism and Caymanian lessons. But I know, having lived in another man's country, that there is a level of respect once you're there as a guest, even if you've acquired residency, you know, you got that American passport or whatever it is, you still approach things knowing that at one point you were an immigrant and you are thankful for the opportunities presented in this country. Right now, we have a situation halfway around the world where Ukraine is being attacked by Russia. By the way, Frank, are you from Ukraine? I'm trying to remember where you're from. Are you from? Let me look you up. I cannot remember. Are you from Ukraine originally? You're somewhere in that area, as I recall. It says Canadian Caymanian internet investor, but certainly you weren't born in the Cayman Islands, and you weren't born in Canada either, right? Where are you originally from? Well, according to Wikipedia, you're Canadian Caymanian internet investor. So I guess you do have Caymanian status. Not sure who updated this, but I'm pretty sure that you were originally, you're German. You're born in Germany? Sorry. All right. Well, you travel all over the world, Frank, and there has to be an understanding that no matter how long you've had Caymanian status for, that, you know, a little bit of respect is due. And I don't think you can respect the Caymanian story if you don't even know what it is, if you don't even understand it. And I think that that's probably what's going on here. It's just a little bit of perhaps willful ignorance why you could make such a comment. Well, let's see what you guys have to say. Good morning. Good morning, Jackie, Miss Ann, John, morning. Louis, joining us from New York. Felicia, good morning. Good morning, Miss Romelia. She says, have a blessed day in the Lord. Thank you, Benji. Omiria, says, good morning. I pray Father God continues to bless us. People like Frank need to go. You know what? I'm not even going to go that far as I'm sitting here drinking my coconut water this morning and say that people like Frank needs to go. Like Frank says, people like him are needed. And I'm not going to dispute that point. I think people like Frank need to educate themselves and need to be mindful of their true contribution to this country. And it's not just about economic wealth and economic prosperity. There's so many ways in which Frank could be contributing to the Cayman Islands, and I wonder how much of that he's actually doing. Now we're coming back to this 20-story building again because of Frank and his comments. Sasha says, am I missing something? Or does the law not state that a work permit should not be granted if there's a Caymanian available? If that is the case, why do we have hospitality workers on the stipend program, yet local hotels are telling an expatriate to send their resume? I'm confused AF. Well, let me help you with the confusion, Sasha. As you can see, Nicola and others will help people simply because she doesn't know anything about this person who's applying for this job. She can't swear for them, but she is still willing to put her neck out on the line and give them an opportunity in food and beverage. How many Caymanians are getting that? Somebody doesn't know you. You don't have any networks. You're not connected. And they're willing to say, you know what? I haven't even seen your resume yet, but I'm going to help you. Send it to me. I'll help you find a job in food and beverage. I had a Jamaican lady, Caymanian status now, of course, call me the other day. I think that was Monday, maybe Tuesday. She was calling me from over the weekend. Miss Sandy, I need you to talk about this issue. We can't find jobs in the industry. What is government doing about it? We're going to come off the stipend. She's talking about how many places she's applied for. Her and her former manager, I forget which hotel they were working at before. And they're going around applying. And they can't get a job. You know how many people have said to me, this is kind of ironic, but Jamaicans in particular have said they found it easier to get a job and a work permit than when they got their Caymanian status. Because all of a sudden, when they got Caymanian status, it was like, oh, you're not, oh, no, we don't want you all of a sudden. Before then, you could find a job with no problem if you had to take out a work permit. Now, isn't that crazy? That should never be the case. But you see, that is happening. So that's why when people see this sort of post, it really does set people off in a particular way. And it's so interesting that social media has done a very interesting job of giving people the opportunity to network in such a fashion where, it doesn't even matter. Doesn't matter where you're from, who you are. You put up a post in the women's group of Cayman and boom, you can have a job. And there are Caymanians who sit there and look at this and think, what? And it's very, very pervasive. This is not a one-off post. This happens a lot. I try to ignore most of what I see in the women's group because next thing you know, they'll kick me out of the group. But invariably, people who are in the group sends me the screenshots anyway. And they're like, here we go again. And that's just how it is. So, this young man who's offering a job, he lives here in the Cayman Islands. Looks like he does work in tourism. I see him in front of a couple hotels. Looks like he was at Atlantis at some point. It says he lives in the Cayman Islands, and he's from the Republic of Macedonia. Yes, that's wonderful. But when was the last time, young man, Mirov, that you helped a Caymanian get employment at wherever it is that you work, whatever hotel you're at. If it's that easy, and I don't think he's HR, he's not the HR manager, but the implication sure is that it's very easy to get a job. If it is that easy to get a job, what Caymanians are you helping? Listen, here's the thing. We all have Mirov's resume now, email address. So you know what? If I were you, all Caymanians in this industry looking for a job, send out as many resumes as you can to Nicola, NIKOLA.Mirov, MIROV at yahoo.com. Say, I'm a Caymanian looking for a job. Can you pass this on to management and help me? Because bless his little heart, he is willing to help people find employment. That's fantastic, Mirov. Thank you for being so nice. The ugly truth says, let's call a spade a spade. We have created this system or allowed it to happen whereby people can show up at our airport and pretty much decide from that moment that they aren't leaving. Well, they don't even show up to the airport. Actually, Mirov is a guy, believe it or not. I know a lot of people assumed it was a woman, but it's a guy. They don't even show up to the airport before they come here. They're deciding, wow, I'm going to go to the Cayman Islands and this is what it's going to be. Let's not talk about, shall we, how 80% plus of people who are employed at the airport are non-Caymanians, including security, baggage handlers, every facet of airport staff. And the ugly truth is, you're absolutely right. We have allowed it. Because who is that company that is hiring all these people at the airport? One of our own, owned by Frank Flowers. Frank, you're not hiring no Caymanians. So it is a bit disheartening that I have to call out a Frank Shillings who has been adopted and received with lots of love and support into the Cayman Islands community. Well, we have our own homegrown Caymanians, such as a Frank Flowers, who I'm sitting here going, by the way, he's on my list. Where's my little notebook of stories to write about? Because yes, he has a lot of security contracts and has the lion's share of what's happening at the airport. He has a ground handler license. I know this because I've been researching this because, like I said, this is one of my stories I'm working on. He's got Delta, United, one whole list of people. And they do everything from truck drivers, security, baggage check-in. They do it all through his airport company. So, if we're going to call out Frank this morning for his ignorance, let's call out Caymanians who are not ignorant to the situation, who are actually very, very well informed, and yet they are choosing, for whatever reason, cheap labor, whatever other excuses they have that they can control people, they are choosing to hire the lion's share of foreign nationals, including in supervisors and in management positions. Okay? This is where it's at. So he has contracts for these companies: Cayman Airways, BA, United, Delta, Air Canada, Spirit, JetBlue, WestJet, Caribbean Airlines. Boom. And over 80% of those individuals who work at the airport are non-Caymanian, foreign nationals. Frank, since we want to talk about this perception that we are not inclusive, tell me where else in the world you could possibly go and find 80% of the airport staff being foreign nationals. In fact, a lot of countries would not allow that, especially when it comes to security, for some kind of obvious reasons. I'm just saying. Emma, good morning. Summer Softy says, Sandy, I'm banned from replying to that same ad. Now I'm banned for 17 hours. Good morning. Ooh, child, what did you say to get banned? Facebook is so ridiculous. Trust me. Hello, John. Thank you. He's saying there's a huge anti-Russia protest in Russia. Yeah, you know, Vladimir is going to shut that down in a minute. Jonathan says the expats are terraforming this country. Did you mean transforming or terraforming? Yes, and I think that's exactly the point. If it were that easy for Caymanians, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Like I said, there's lots of room, obviously, to embrace people from all over. So Diamond Princess says the people in this country should come first. If the Caymanian can't do the job, then train them, because we are willing to train other people. So absolutely. Magdalene says he will never understand it. I think he could understand it, but he's not really going down a path or a journey that is conducive to him understanding it. And absolutely, Sasha, that's exactly my point. Nobody said Caymanians only. I've never heard anyone say Caymanians only and we want all foreign nationals to go. Nobody in their right mind would say that. Carol says that he should volunteer with Meals on Wheels for a week, and that would open his eyes. Yeah, because I was suggesting making donations, but throwing money at a problem is always easy when you have money. You know, so what? Here's what it was, a $10,000 donation. Frank, go out and volunteer with NPOs and NGOs in this community, such as Meals on Wheels. There's tons more that do wonderful work. You know, I'm going to say this about raising children. When you have children, and you are of a particular financial means, even just a middle-class family, nobody wants their child to maybe grow up poor if they grew up poor, or to suffer any sort of financial stress. But, you know, it is your responsibility to raise the next generation of children that understand the plight of the world. You're the 1%ers. Most people in the world do not live like you. They don't have access to private jets. They don't have access to all these fast cars and all this sort of stuff, right? That's not their reality. The reality is, if they can pay their bills, they're living paycheck to paycheck. They lose a job, or somebody becomes ill in their country, in their home, sorry. That's going to be a huge deal to them. So as a result of that, I think that you have an obligation to raise children who understand a little bit more about the true plight of the world. Like, you've got to make your kids volunteer, become dog walkers, to understand the plight of animals in this community. Go to the old folks' homes. I grew up in a typical, what I would consider middle-class family in America. And these are things that in high school and middle school, I was exposed to. I volunteered at the old folks' home. Did I tell you guys about the story of me and one little old man? I'm sitting there reading to him, because we'd take the newspaper and read it to them. We'd visit them. And he's sitting there quietly listening, or so I thought. And then at one point I started asking him some questions about, I've been reading to you all this time. What do you think about what's happening in the world? And he was like, what you saying? What you saying, honey? Hold on one second. Let me put in my hearing aid. That man wasn't listening to me, none at all. But he was smiling. So he was clearly enjoying my company. It's funny, though. Good morning, Julian. Damaris is in New York. Good morning. Moya says, which Caymanian you see that has a Caymanian only dynamic? As Caymanians, we have no issues of foreigners being here. The issue we have is when there's a job and the Caymanian is more than qualified and has experience, but yet they do not get the opportunity to fill that role. But a work permit is granted for a foreigner who is less qualified and gets paid way more than a Caymanian in a similar role. That, sir, is our issue, just like Canada and the US. We would also like to be put first in our own country. And it's funny because in America, they're all about Americans first. There's a lot of jobs you would never be able to get in the United States of America if you were not a born American. Forget about acquiring American status elsewhere. Where are our elected officials? What are they doing? What are they going to do for our people? I'm so tired of these politicians, says Jonathan. Well, you know, I suspect, I do have my sinuses bothering me a little bit, so I'm going to take a quick break. But I suspect that, to be quite frank, a lot of them are sitting back doing what they normally do, which is not saying a whole lot of anything because they don't want to upset the equilibrium of the super rich that are here that, you know, are going to invite them to certain events. I saw your comments, folks, about the ribbon cutting, and, you know, they were there ribbon cutting at Starbucks, and you were like, hold on a second here. When are they going to start talking to us about these issues that we're so concerned about? Now, I was, in all fairness to them, I said, listen, ribbon cutting is part of their job. It's what they do. Now, if you are of the opinion that they are not as equally concerned and involved with your lives otherwise, now that's a problem. And I'm not going to tell you that you would be wrong for that if that's the actual situation, and that's how you actually feel, and if that's actually what's happening, right? That's the thing. So I agree with the sentiment that some of them need to do more, some of them need to speak up more. And if your people, aka the voters in this community, are demanding that of you, then I suggest you listen. Let's take a commercial break.
Reliable Industries offers premier floor and rug cleaning services. Our deep clean option is ideal for accent and area rugs. Clean rugs and floors have many health benefits for both the workplace and home by removing allergens and pet hair and dander. Reliable has the qualified team and equipment to return your floors to pristine condition. Keep your floors looking their best by contacting the professionals at Reliable Industries today at 345-949-9303. Reliable Industries. The clean you expect, the service you deserve.
All right, folks, give Reliable Industries a call. By the way, I'm all about supporting Caymanian companies first. Cayman first, very simple. And I use Reliable over the holidays to clean some. Actually, I lie. I misspoke, I should say. I didn't use them in the holidays. I used them right after because I did not book them as I should have before the holidays to clean my cushions for me on the back porch. So they came, and I tell you what, the guy they sent, he was so thorough. Oh my gosh, he did an amazing job. Really, really amazing job. Good morning, Brother Tommy. How are you? Emma's here, says missed a bit, had an early meeting. Which Frank are we talking about? Your cousin? Oh, child, no. Oh, my apologies. No, Emma. We're talking about what is his net worth? I think somebody told me the other day when we were talking about him in relation to Dart. So maybe he's worth a couple $1 billion. This is a guy who owns Unit Registry, and he's like a tech. He got started in tech, and now he's expanding into real estate and everything else. But Frank Schillings is his name, folks. Shout out to Frank. Do you listen to the program, Frank? I mean, you are Caymanian now, so perhaps you embrace all things Caymanian, including the cold hard truth. I don't know. Benji says, I agree. We're not Cayman only. We're Cayman first. We're hardworking and want to make a strong statement. Not even a strong statement, because can I be very frank with y'all? Caymanians are a bunch of puppy dogs. You know what I mean? Y'all are very soft. The average Caymanian can't tell you what's on their mind. They got their tail between their legs and they're going to go sit down in the corner. They're going to pout. And then they're going to call me and tell me I must speak up for them. That's the average Caymanian. No matter how many status they have, they buy, says Miranda. They still hate Caymanians. They run away from crime in their own country, plus scrape or tax dollars. Why is your home, Frank? Why you run away from your land? Well, no, it's not Frank Matfield, folks. Not that Frank. We're not talking about him today. And I'm not even saying that Frank ran away from anywhere. You know, I think he claims that he grew up poor and he has this interesting story. I'd like to hear it. But I think sometimes when you become a person of a particular means, you become very, very disengaged with the realities of the world, like what the average person is having to endure. Just this week, I had a gift certificate that I donated to a young lady. And, you know, I think no matter where you are in life, you probably have more than somebody else out there. And so we should all encourage this attitude of give. And the more I get, the more I want to help other people. Not hoard it for myself, not sit up on the hill and pretend like, you know, these issues don't exist. So Ms. Amelia says people tend to buy their way into our island. Sometimes you shower our leaders with cash, they tend to get what they want. And at the end of the day, who's to blame for selling at our islands or jobs along with work permits in return for free spa and free food in expensive restaurants? It needs to stop. Well, one thing I must say, it's a little bit of a quandary, Ms. Amelia, when you say that, because the interesting thing is there are some people who money isn't what motivates them, especially in the world of politics. And I think that when you elect people, you need to look at why they're there. Why do they want to be a politician? So if the fancy dinners and the invites and all that stuff impresses people, maybe those are the people you need to be a little bit wary of in the world of politics, because they can be easily bought, child. If you can be bought for a steak dinner at the Ritz, damn, that's a low price. Now, if you're someone of independent means, say, for example, you are Wayne Panton of the world. Frank might have a lot of money, but, you know, Wayne isn't going to be impressed with a Ritz dinner or, oh, let's go on my boat. Wayne's got his own boat. He'd be like, no, thanks. So I do think that you have to look carefully at individuals who you want to elect as politicians to see what motivates them. Now, listen, I like nice stuff just like everybody else, right? I want to buy a nice car, fantastic. As long as I'm working hard, honest days working, yes, I'm going to go out there and buy me a Benz. And so what? But nobody's giving it to me. I'm not stealing it from anyone. I'm working really hard. Two things. I can either afford, because of decent credit, to go to the bank and say, loan me the money, and I'm going to pay 5 times the value of the car, but just loan me the money. And the bank is going to say, yes, we know you'll pay it back. And every month you pay your little bank loans. You can have all the nice things in the world you want. No one is begrudging anyone because they have something nice. What we're saying is when you have the ability to be influential in life, sometimes just because you have money, you think that makes you influential. Your words do matter, Frank, because I guess people are paying attention. That's why we've been talking about it this morning, because your words matter to some people. It's just unfortunate that your words don't necessarily reflect an accurate and true position. The Ugly Truth says, just for accuracy, it was Carlene who started the rum cake, her family recipe. Yes, and I think that's the story of Tortuga. That Miss Carlene rum cake recipe made that what it is. But I mean, you have to admit that the husband obviously played a critical role in developing the business along with his wife. But again, my point being that for many, many years, the Cayman Islands has invited people to come into the Cayman Islands, set up businesses, compete with Caymanians sometimes even, and be in a position to offer, the community a service, a business, whatever. And they've been fully embraced. Caymanians have always, by and large, embraced other people. And the irony of it is, the more we get situations like this happening with this work permit and a certain caliber of individual coming into this country, the more the divide is going to grow. And I'm not here to try to not forest, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, it's escaping me at the moment. The right word is escaping me, but I'm not here to try to feed into any expat hate or anti-expat sentiments. That's not what I'm about at all. And you guys would know this about me. If you know me, you know that that's not where my heart is at all. I have friends who are expats. I'm married to an expat. The first husband was an expat, let's be honest. Right? So I'm about inclusion and diversity. But I also am a Caymanian first. Not a Caymanian only. I'm a Caymanian first. And that's all Caymanians want, is to be in their own country, to have a voice, to have a job. Doesn't sound like you're asking for a lot, really, to have an opportunity. That's it. To be treated fairly and equally in your own country. Marshall, Catherine, good morning. Catherine says, whether or not Caymanians want those jobs, Caymanians are not even being considered. And that is the problem. That's it. Like I said, if that was a Caymanian, so many times you've seen Caymanians post on these social media groups and so on that they need a job. I don't see Nicola, whatever the name is, Mirov Nicola, saying, oh, I'll help you out. And that's exactly the problem. Marshall says, every country has their fair share of people who don't want to work. Those who would be lazy. I'm here in the US, and trust me, this is where I've seen some of the most able-bodied people, young and old, that don't want to work. Caymanians should always come first when it comes to job placement. Ms. Amelia says she's heard of complaints about getting government jobs. Even from her own personal experience, I applied for a government job and they plainly told the group that was doing the tests, even if they pass the test, doesn't mean that they will get the job. Well, first of all, I mean, that's obvious because you probably had 100 people applying for one job. So they're probably trying to make people be realistic that only one person can get the job. And passing the test is only one of the criteria. Morning, Debbie. Miss Miranda says Frank is upset because he's not building his 20-story or whatever water bungalows. Sour Kurt Frank. I don't even know why he brought up this 20-story thing in the way in which he did. I think I've spoken to someone else about this. I think there's a conversation to be had about going up, but the way in which he did it, again, completely oblivious to what people in the Cayman Islands think and how they feel. Just doesn't have a clue. Yep. Aliana says this issue seems to be fairly prominent now, as these individuals are now emboldened to stand in a soapbox and declare themselves better than the people who are Caymanian. It's a hot mess, folks. It really is a hot mess. Let me read some of the WhatsApp comments. Pam says, I need to move to Cayman from the UK. Can someone give me a job, please? What a mess. I'm sure you will have no issues at all, Pam. That's the irony of the situation. Failing successive governments have dropped the ball and allowed this unregulated process of everyone with money is someone of quality, but fail to see not all shit is gold. I'm pretty sure that's not the quote, Aliano. Is it not supposed to be all that's golden? Not all that's golden is, not all that glitters is gold or something. He says not all shit is gold. Well, as far as I recall, no shit is gold. But anyway, maybe you know something that I don't. Ay. What a mess. Let's read some of the other comments. It says, good morning. Be reminded that in the last 2 elections, quite a few of the candidates and now ministers campaigned for Caymanians. However, they've done nothing. This is a Facebook WhatsApp comment, sorry. Work permits are still being issued freely. A person can cancel a work permit today and obtain another work permit within a week without a release letter from the employer. These are the things that affect small businesses, which are the pillar of the economy. By the way, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have heard time and time again that it is now becoming easier and easier for people to get out of a work permit and job hop, essentially. And, you know, administrators, I was mentioning this the other day because I was trying to figure out what percentage of work permits are actually, because the Progressives government changed this law, what percentage of work permits are actually now approved by administrators versus the board. And this is what I was told by a person in power, PIP, and more importantly, a person in the know. They said, hey, Sandra, this was on Wednesday. I was asking this question because I said, do you know what percentage of work permits actually go to the board via versus being handled administratively? And they said the majority should be dealt with administratively. Only the contentious applications should go to the board. At least that was the vision when I was there. Do we need 12 people to decide whether you need a helper or the Ritz needs an executive chef? So what you guys don't understand, maybe you missed it, is that law was changed under the last administration, where most of the work permits are approved administratively. And I dare say that those individuals, really and truly, the administrators, from what I've seen, the observations that I've made and what I hear people saying, is they don't seem to have the ability to tell people no. So they're rubber stamping the approval of these work permits. That is very, very interesting. So Emma says, ignorance is bliss. I hear every day people talking about white people and slaves, while the first slave owner was a black man. His name was Anthony Johnson. It's just that these bar owners bringing in certain nationalities and naming them perform certain acts and giving them a percentage of the illegally earned finances. Ain't no Caymanian doing those jobs to start with, much less giving their employer money that they had to lay on their backs for. Some of the most dangerous snakes, unfortunately, gets cut off. You said the first slave owner was a black man. First slave owner where? What country we're talking about? I wasn't quite sure what you meant by that. Remelia wants to know if government HR manager and expat. Well, government has a lot of HR managers in different departments, so you'd have to be more specific about that. It's definitely not just one, so I'm not sure what that means. They got HR managers all over the place. Miranda is talking about, government living off of work permit revenue. Good morning, Mr. Timothy. Dion says, because when you have a work permit, they can have you like a puppy. Yes, there is certainly a sentiment there that work permit holders are treated less than. And that's also a problem, because that's not right. Miss Ingrid, good morning. Yep, it's true. Morning, Wanda. Sasha wants to know, why hasn't Works come on your show as yet? We need to hear from the director on what is in place to help Caymanians find jobs over granting permits. It's a very good question. And the answer is, I don't know. Check my Facebook Messenger. All right. Give me a second. Catherine says, I know someone who's been applying for years for airport security and has never even received a reply. Apparently, they're too busy hiring child pedophiles. Anyway, now that's an issue we need to discuss. I understand that they tried to use the excuse that Caymanians know each other. So apparently we can't be trusted with security. Oh, at the airport? Child, please. That's ridiculous. That not only is it ridiculous, but so if you hire the majority Filipinos, let me just try to understand the logic behind why someone would say that, right? And, Filipinos are actually the largest foreign nationals here. Are you going to then say, oh, well, Filipinos are traveling in and out of the airport, so therefore, they might give each other a pass with security? You know why else that doesn't make any sense? Ugly truth is the majority of people in the Cayman Islands are not even Caymanians anymore. So I'm very suspect about that one. Vernice says, we in a mess. Well, that's for sure. That I think we can all agree in. Another comment says, no permit should be allowed as long as there's a Caymanian that's capable of taking or being trained for that job. There should be a person employed by government that goes around on a daily basis to visit every job that is being held by a non-Caymanian. They wouldn't have enough people to do that job, dear sir. I'm just saying that would be very time consuming. Caymanian must have something good or else he wouldn't. Cayman must have something good or else he wouldn't have come here, go back to Germany and help them sort out their gas and oil problems with Russia. They sure need it. Does that lady that wants to help the Canadian have a permit to allow her to do that service? That's actually a man, and I doubt he's in HR. This is just networking. Send me your resume, and I'm going to give it to the HR manager at the hotel, who's not likely to be a Caymanian, and so, we'll slide you right through. I'm not going to even suggest that Frank goes back to Germany. I'm going to suggest that Frank go and hang out in Dog City for a minute so he can get a real idea of some of the issues that are facing this country. Another person says that Maple Leaf Mafia is strong here. Our fate was sealed by two men in particular, Alden and McKeeva. Add to that the Cayman nonsense. We repealed the one piece of legislation that could have ensured a more equitable future for our people, the Caymanian Protection Law. I think the word you're looking for is vernacular. Oh, thank you. Yes. Government's rapturous appetite for work permit revenue will preclude any meaningful Caymanian human resource development. Wow. Here's another comment on WhatsApp. I do believe, and I have now for a long time, there are certain industries in our economy that should be Caymanian only. The water sports industry should have been generational Caymanians only. There should have never been a work permit granted for a real estate agent. And I've said that here before. I think this government needs to reset the dial on that because it makes no sense. That is an industry that would be very, very easy to fix. and make Caymanian only. So very, very few are born Caymanians that they can boast and say that all of the real estate agents are Caymanians. Yeah, paper Caymanians. I'll never forget when you asked the Cereba people on your show, they said that all of the agents are Caymanians. That really pissed me off. I know a few Caymanians in the real estate industry, and they had to fight some in court for their commission. In the water sports industry, you have people from other countries with money to buy boats, setting up companies, and stupid Caymanians are fronting for them. Once again, we are the problem. Who is more qualified to show others our waters or sell our island? The answer is very simple: Caymanians. Someone else says Frank is obviously misguided as he is with his 20-story buildings that he wants for Georgetown. All right, good morning. Another person says government makes a load of money and work permits and PR. Could be part of the problem, sorry. Has to be close to $100 million. They need to get people working and make that money back by saving on NAU because Caymanians are working. We are guests here and we need to act as such. We are house guests, sorry, and we need to act as such. So that's someone who's actually not a Caymanian, live and work here in the Cayman Islands, but he, realizes what it is. All right. I see somebody messaging me about a dump truck. I'll read that one later. So another person says most of them have only because they can't maintain the same lifestyle where they come from. Most are crooks running from something. And of course, we, the Cayman Islands, welcome them with open arms. Don't forget Rock Hole. Yes, let's visit Rock Hole, Frank. Let's do it. Someone says, I believe she, or must be he, is recruiting for Frank Schilling's soon to be opened Greek restaurant in the Grove. Maybe why he loses. Last sentence. Oh, maybe why he's weighing in. Oh. Okay. All right. We got the Honorable Kenneth Bryan here. Forgive me for not getting through all of your comments, folks. I know there's a lot of comments. Minister, are you ready? I'll have you come on, and obviously you've got some comments you'd like to say this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Sandy. Good morning to Cayman and Cayman Mile Road followers. How are you doing today?
Oh, we're wonderful. How are you?
Not too bad. Just listening to the show. Interesting show today about some very sensitive topical areas of concern that we have been dealing with for decades and decades and decades. So just thought I would chime in on a few of them.
Yeah, sure. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, specifically in respect to, a lot of people are talking about, the current administration and our efforts to try to ensure that Caymanians get work. People are seeing some work permits being granted, but the flip side to that is when we're holding tight on not granting many of them, and the fight that we're getting from the business community being angry at us, saying that we're not granting work permits, and now that the economy is starting to open, we're making it difficult and not facilitating for the necessary labor for the economy to grow. And this is a delicate balance that we're trying to have, so much so that we're holding fast on keeping the labor market squeezed, so not intentionally, but rightfully so, ask them to go out and look for Caymanians. But sometimes you don't hear the stories behind the scenes when we get emails to the premier, to myself, to the deputy premier, the Honorable Christopher Saunders, who's in charge of labor, of persons complaining why the work permit's not being dealt with. And what we're trying to do is to ensure that the business community go out there and hire Caymanians. But the fact is, there's nothing under law that we can force a business to hire a Caymanian. what we can try to do is try to somewhat control the labor availability by lack of access to work permits. But bearing in mind, 50%, more than 50% of our economy is non-Caymanian labor. So you can't stop it altogether, but you can tighten the belt, which lets them know the indication of the government's policy to say, listen, you need to start focusing on Caymanians more. And I must say that I wish that they would be more responsive, but it's almost like a tug and war. They're like, okay, fine, we won't hire anybody. And this is particularly, I'm talking about the tourism industry, because as Minister of Tourism, I've been asked to try to facilitate, the appropriate amount of labor for the market. I was like, I don't want to hear that. It's like, you guys knew we were trying to open up, and we had one little, what I call a half, I wouldn't even say it like that, but a half effort job fair that didn't even really have all the jobs that are within the tourism industry displayed. Up till now, I can't hear how many people were hired as a result of that, because they don't want to say, because they probably don't want to say only 10 people. And the whole country knows we were moving towards reopening eventually. One job fair, and then you're going to come and write us emails about, oh, we need more labor market, and there's still Caymanians unemployed. I was like, you know what? Don't call me. Call Chris, the Minister of Labor, because you think I'm harsh. He's going to be a whole lot harsher in respect to the labor approach. And my job as minister is to facilitate a robust tourism industry, and a key factor in that is labor. But some of these employers just won't do their obligatory part and the bigger picture for Cayman, and it's disappointing. I must say, I thank God every day and the people of Georgetown Central for putting me in this opportunity. But I don't want to make it be about the employer and the employee. But the employers aren't doing their part, and they continue to make excuses about Caymanians don't want to be in the industry. We've tried before, and I keep on saying, keep on trying. Of course, we have one or two persons, and I don't mean literally one or two, but we have a few people who disappoint us as Caymanians, and they make us look bad. But every country does. And if you want to have the sweet honey of this country, you have to deal with some of those pains, because nobody complains when you get the pleasures of the incomes that you get. So, honestly speaking, sometimes the public don't get to see what we're dealing with in the background, because we don't publicize it. But I thought it'd be important to say today, to say to the public, listen, we're fighting an internal battle, and trying not to be the anti-business government, because nobody should ever be that. It's not good for the economy. But the fights that we get go, oh, this government doesn't want to facilitate this or facilitate that. They don't want to facilitate development. There is the other side of this coin, because we're the people's government. We're trying to do what you asked us to do. But trust me, a lot of people are pissed off about that, and they will hold on as long as they can. I remember actually talking to the deputy premier just 2 days ago. I said, DP, you're the Minister of Labor. Hold tight. No matter how much they complain, hold tight until we feel comfortable there's enough Caymanians working. Then just keep holding tight. And if it's up to me, I would tell every single member on the board, don't grant none. Particularly when you see a Caymanian apply, don't grant them. If they don't want to like us, too bad. The people put us here for this purpose. And if we don't do it, what's the point of having this government? I say that all together because that's where we're trying to convince them to work with our people. But they don't hear the other side with the fight and the struggle. Sometimes I know civil service can't say so much, but even the Department of Labor, who constantly see when a Caymanian may have applied and there's still work permits going through, they've got a task, a very serious task, and they're trying. I must say that, but the struggle is real.
Well, thank you, Minister, for those sentiments. What would you say? I listened keenly to the fact that you said that there's nothing in the law that allows you to put Caymanians first. I'm a little bit confused by that.
I did not say that, Sandy. I did not say that.
What did you say about work permits? That there's nothing in the law.
I said there's nothing in the law to force an employer to hire a Caymanian. Meaning, If they choose not to hire a person, they can just say, I'm not going to hire anybody then if I can't get the person I want. So hypothetically speaking, I need a bartender. I can't get the work permit that I want, then I just won't fill the position. That's what I mean. So you can't forcefully go in there and say, you've got to put this person in your workplace. You can't do that. What we can say is that if you intend to put somebody there, we could put restrictions in place as to who gets approved for that place. So they always have the option to hire a Caymanian. Where we have our controls is whether they make an application for a non-Caymanian and whether we think it should be granted or not. But that has to coincide with a balanced system of having Caymanians available. And where we've always had problems, administration after administration, is this subjective view as to who's qualified for a job. And I've talked about it for years and years and years and years and years. Who decides whether a person is qualified for a job? Is it the government? Is it the employer? And that's where the problem is, because a person's viewpoint about whether somebody's ready for that position that they have, that the business owner in control of, is dependent upon their viewpoint. I don't think this person is ready. And this is where the laws come in. And when we get harsh in the laws, then when the business community starts to come down on this administration and say, no, this is an anti-business government, then I just want the public to understand that the measures, the policy measures that we're trying to do to balance the equation of labor accessibility, to make sure that they try to focus more on Caymanians, is not an easy one. Not an easy one at all. When we're doing what we need to do, there's a lot of things that I know the Honorable Deputy Premier, Christopher Saunders, is working on to squeeze that belt. But all of them are not going to come right away. Like, say, for instance, the review of the point system, the review of a national jobs criteria within the labor market. But all these things, we've been focusing on reopening the borders so much. Now that things are getting easier for tourism, you're going to start to see a lot more of these efforts starting to happen. And I'd say I have all the confidence in the world in Honorable Deputy Premier, because he's not one to be frightened by the fear. I actually went with him to a meeting with the chamber the other day, and those are the kind of meetings I wish the public could see. When he goes, too bad, hire Caymanians. You may have actually seen correspondence when some people are saying, oh, the backlog of work permits, and why are they not running smoothly? Why are we complaining? Why is there a complaint about backlog of work permits? Why is their complaint not about help me get some more Caymanians? And even as I'm speaking right now, there's going to be an employer who goes, look, that minister doesn't want to help us facilitate our business. And not all of them, don't get me wrong, they're not all bad, but I must say the general attitude out there is they're not trying. I got a call, was it Wednesday? And a certain group was trying to ask us to help facilitate because, business is starting to pick up. I was like, man, I don't want to hear it. I said, I do not want to hear it. I was like, we had one job fair, one within the last year. And you guys expect us to help you facilitate, and you don't even try to hire Caymanians? At least fool the people. Fool them. Tell them a lie. Say you had 10 job fairs, so I can say at least they tried and justify that. They won't even try to fool us. They're so bold with it these days. And to be honest with you, I know that my comments may not be the most attractive to the business community, but I am here on behalf of the people. That's what they put me here for. So they already know how I feel, and I've had enough with it. I said, my job is to open the country to allow tourism to be here. The Minister of Labor's job is to balance the equation of work. And I think that he's doing what he needs to do behind the scenes. So
and I appreciate that, Minister, and I'm glad that you shared that with us. But at some point, you have to know that the average Caymanian person, if they don't see it, so in other words, behind the scenes is fantastic, but if they're saying, listen, we don't see it in the results, we don't see it in the hiring, they're going to wonder how effective it is. So one comment that just came in on WhatsApp essentially says, unfortunately, that's not the mandate that the staff at Works has. They're mandated to approve 40 work permits per day. Now, there's been this sentiment, and I don't know how much you would know about this, but I've heard this before, that the Works administrators who are, administratively approving these work permits have been told that their quota for the day is to do 40 applications completed per day. And so that is forcing them to not scrutinize applications as closely as they could, and that they're actually not empowered, or they're fearful of turning down a work permit, because there seems to be some push by the administrators, over at the Works agency, the Works department, to get permits through. Do you know anything about this, Minister?
I have no idea about that. As you know, I'm not the Minister for Labor, so I would definitely not be commenting on that. And I don't know where the source of your information came from to say whether it's credible or not. I'm not saying that you're not credible, Sandy. I love you and CMR, but I'm not going to comment on that. Now, if that was to hypothetically be real, then I can see where that could be creating problems. But we have to put things in perspective to the bigger picture. And I say that to say this. We have a population of 70,000 people. So, and we have, let's just use a round figure, say 3,000 unemployed Caymanians. And of the 70,000 population, half of that is work permit holders. So we got 35,000 people who are non-Caymanian who had to go through the work permit process. And 3,000 unemployed Caymanians is a fraction of the 35,000. It's actually only 10%. So what that tells you is there's 90% of people still need to be processed, even if we were to cover all of the Caymanians who are unemployed. So we can't say that you're not going to get work permits being approved throughout this process. It's about the difference of tightening the belt enough to cover those Caymanians who are not employed. So to think that they're not going to be work permits approved is not realistic. You're still going to need lawyers, accountants,
and listen,
all of these
one
other
is
things.
And to be very clear, Minister, just like when we were reading Frank's comment, no one has ever, I don't even know where he got that from, no one has ever said Caymanians only. We have said Caymanians first, which is an acceptance that we need foreign labor, and we need foreigners in this country contributing to the economy. And to be quite frank, there are very few Caymanians that you will see walking around who have a chip on their shoulder, where they're like, oh, I don't want anybody here but Caymanians, because we've always been a very welcoming group of individuals. That's why, like I said, we have 130 something plus nationalities on such a small little island. We are very, very diverse. And we have lived by and large for such a diverse population without any tensions amongst the different people. But, people get a sense that as more and more Caymanians become disenfranchised, that is changing, because Caymanians are getting fed up. And they put the responsibility on the government to help to address those issues. Can I ask you anything about the job fair, Minister? I know when DOT had the job fair, it was well attended, and you said that you were going to reserve any of your comments to when you actually saw some results. Do you have any results from that job fair as yet that we can discuss?
I was saying that earlier. That's why I reserved my comments then, because having a job fair don't mean anything to me. I want to see the results. And up to now, I still can't get the numbers of how many people were employed as a result of it. Matter of fact, I heard one person got hired at one of the hotels, and what they promised the person to do, they didn't end up doing. And they said, I left a good job, making more money to come to that job. Thankfully, the employer before ended up taking them back, and they ended up leaving it. So, I mean, I am not convinced. And I've told the industry this, I am not convinced there's a concerted effort to try. I know that you're not going to get every Caymanian in all of these jobs, but the mandate of this government is to improve the percentage of Caymanians within the tourism industry. So, and I do not believe that they're trying to do that. And I'm the Minister of Tourism. I see it every day. I try to keep connected with the labor ministry as to where things are at. And I am not convinced. And I'll say that from any mountain, anywhere. They're not trying hard enough, and they continue to give an excuse. And I said to them, I don't want to hear the excuses anymore. I said, my people are frustrated. They're on comments, they're on social media. We have to be exposed to these meetings where they talk undermining our people and not realizing our people are listening. Comments on Facebook about people trying to come here and how nice it is and how easy it is to get work. People are going to get frustrated. Caymanians are dealing with a high cost of living, which is a very difficult task for our government to deal with, particularly with this new war that's happening in Ukraine now. It's going to get worse. And I remember calling the deputy premier yesterday and said, bro, it's even now we're going to have to hold the belt even tighter because we expect that the cost of living is going to go up over the next 6 months. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And now is not a time to play games. And I know the business community may not be happy about this. I'm probably going to get an email from somebody in chamber by the end of today, but I'm here as the people's representative, and that's the simple fact. If we don't hold tight now, we'll never get an opportunity like this again. And
well, let me speak to that point because Doss Solomon is listening to the program this morning, and Doss says that we have lost a huge opportunity to correct the face of our hospitality industry when training was not provided to Caymanians to take up the positions of those who are forced to repatriate as a result of the pandemic. It seems like it's only a crime to be nationalistic if you're Caymanian. Now, Doss, let me take this opportunity, Minister, just one quick second here for me. Let me take this opportunity, folks, to remind all of you, since we're going to talk about training at this juncture, I think it's important to remind you that right now, this is where Caymanians need to step up to the plate. There is training opportunities available for you if you are interested in tourism. Now, you see, when y'all don't take up these opportunities, that's when they can come back and say, you see, what did I tell you? So we have 2 training courses, folks, that are being offered through the Department of, or the Ministry of Tourism and Transport in collaboration with private sector. The first one, let me put these in order now. Actually, the first one is the Introduction to Bartending. This is a free course. All you have to be is a Caymanian 18 years or older, and you can register at wineschool.ourcayman.ky. This is a wonderful opportunity. The deadline for this is February the 28th, which is Monday. So if you're interested in this, you got to register between now and Monday, folks. Don't miss the deadline. And the course dates are from March the 7th through the 12th, and then again on March the 14th through the 19th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if you are still unemployed, and particularly if you're one of those people who's benefiting from the tourism stipend, the displaced tourism stipend, this is a perfect opportunity for you to upskill yourself. So folks, please go and register for this. Very, very easy requirements. Caymanian 18 years or older. Learn a thing or two about bartending. You don't know what job opportunities that are coming up that you might be able to avail yourself of if you are taking these types of courses. Okay. So the other wonderful thing is there's another course that is being offered, which is a front of house server course. Again, free training. The deadline for this one is March the 7th, and the course dates are March the 21st through the 25th from 9 a.m. until 5. So once again, you can go to the wineschool.ourcayman.ky to register. Same requirements, Caymanian, 18 years of age and older. So Doss, your point is taken about training. Now we have where the minister, which is responsible for the Ministry of Tourism and Transport, is actually offering you free training. You have no excuse, especially if you don't have a job at the moment. This is your opportunity, folks, to get out there and upskill yourself. I was talking about the necessity, I think it was on Monday's program, to continually add new skill sets to your repertoire. You may not be in tourism forever. You might not be able to drive a bus forever, but there are other opportunities that will become available to you. And sometimes you got to be willing to just put yourself out there and do a little bit on the training front. Minister?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sandy, for highlighting those training opportunities. But, you know, I can see somebody going, okay, where were these training programs before? They were there for a long time. We've had the hospitality school at UCI for years now, from the last administration, the last two, matter of fact, and the former minister. training has never been the biggest deal. It's always been after you train people, whether they want to hire them. I remember when I first became Minister of Tourism, that's the first thing I went in. Where is the training? Where is the training? And I was all flustered and everything else. And after all the debriefing and showing me what has been done over the years ago, Minister, we've been doing our part, but they just still don't want to hire them. There's so many kids who have graduated from overseas, come back home, still can't get a job in the industry. The kids that graduate from our UCCI program still come out and they say, oh, now they need they need to be in an industry longer or more training, or the excuses that they need experience. And that's where this idea came up from for the tourism project that I'm doing, because the excuses didn't have any training. So I'm going to build an establishment where they can get on-hand training while they're being trained in the classroom at the same time. So I want to see what their excuse is going to be then. But the training opportunity is never the issue. And to be honest with you, being from the industry, I was a bartender and a front of house server at the Marriott Hotel when I was 23 years old. And I never had one drop of training myself. And I keep on telling that to the industry when they say, oh, they need to be trained because of certain standards. And I was like, that's rubbish. I apologize, it's rubbish, because as a Caymanian, I mean, maybe you might talk about the attitude of the person to be prepared to want to learn. That's a different thing. But I went into the Marriott Hotel. I took 2 weeks worth of training on the job, right? I mean, if you think about it, outside of learning, for instance, the bartending course about what drinks goes into what, you can learn these things on the job site. You can learn them on the job site, and you can cover another bartender for 2 to 3 weeks. And you learn most of the regular things, a rum and coke, a gin and tonic, a margarita, a mudslide. And you can learn them all in 1 week.
Yep. Listen to me. Listen, Minister, last week I went to a restaurant that we frequent often, and they had a new guy there working behind the bar. And actually, all I wanted was a smoothie, a mango smoothie. And he made the mango smoothie for me, and I had to correct him 3 times on how it needed to be made. I was not even, the first time he made it, I was like, nope, I need to put this creamer in it and do it like this. So he went back and he remixed it, and he came back, and then it was so thick that I couldn't actually like take it through the straw. So I was like, okay, I need to dilute it a little bit. I'm training him, and I don't know the first thing about bartending. And I was kind of sitting there going, why is this job not being filled by a Caymanian? That was my first thought, because I'm like, listen, I get it that, you know, you're a trainee and you're learning on the job. He was actually behind the bar by himself. So that's why I had to instruct him in how to make my mango smoothie. It was a virgin, so it didn't even have any alcohol or anything special in it. And I think, right, you know, obviously this organization is willing and happy to have someone kind of learn on the job, make some mistakes. I'm flexible as a customer. I'm not going to get upset about it. You know, it's not going to, the end of the world is, the world isn't going to come because, you know, I didn't get a mango smoothie just right. But why couldn't that have been a Caymanian? Well,
you're 100% correct. I see that all the time. So what you're basically saying, and what I'm agreeing with you is that non-Caymanians make mistakes too. They're not any different.
I mean, they're learning on the job too, is the point I'm trying to make.
Exactly. You know? Exactly. Yep. So this is not about capability. This is about choice. This is about their choice on addressing the Caymanian participation in this industry. And I am convinced their delivery and discussions about the labor availability doesn't seem to give me the feeling that they genuinely want to put Caymanians in the industry. And that's the disappointing part. You know, I was at a dinner meeting last night at Cayman Bay, and I just walked by the restaurants and I say, oh my God. It just do me a favor, folks. Today is Friday, right? Just walk from one side of the restaurant area of Cayman Bay to the other side. Walk through the restaurant and tell me, I mean, granted, you can't look to see what a Caymanian is, because Caymanians are all shape, colors, and sizes and stuff. So I'm reluctant on that. But because we have a small society, we usually know who are Caymanians and who are not within 5 seconds. I sometimes just go to the restaurant and go, hi, how you doing today? Can I get a glass of water? just to see what their knowledge is and just to see what their accent sounds like. And I go, oh, I've never seen you before. How long you been here? Like, oh yeah, I just got here 6 months ago. And sometimes they don't even know they're talking to the Minister of Tourism. And it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts.
Listen, when I first moved back, I'll tell you a story along the same lines. When I first moved back to Cayman back in 1996, I remember I used to have, it was a bit of a running joke between my ex-husband and I. He was American, actually, and he saw the point really, really easily. I would go into a lot of restaurants and I would say, so what part of Canada are you from? And they would say, how do you know I'm from Canada? And because it was something like 80% of all service staff, right? Waiters and waitresses, bar people, whatever, were all from Canada. And I picked that up within the first couple months of being here. And I would, like I said, we made it into a bit of a game. I'd be like, okay, let's see how many people I can catch today with this question. I'd just be, oh, so what part of Canada are you from? Oh, how did you know? Oh, yeah, I'm from Toronto. I'm from and you know, they were always wondering how I knew, because it didn't take me very long after being away for 15 years and leaving as a child to return back as an adult and to see that, wow, service staff in Cayman are by and large Canadian. It was the most unusual thing.
Yeah,
but,
it's true. But
as the years went on, I got to see the issue.
So, sorry, I just want to put some necessary caveats out there as to the reality of the industry. There's a lot of human behavior elements that we haven't focused on, because it's important that we all recognize how we get to where we are and how to fix it, right?
Yeah.
So the first things first is I want those who may oppose our position today, who may be listening, to say, yes, I understand that there's a lot of Caymanians who don't necessarily think the tourism industry is profitable because they don't fully understand. I also understand that the shift work for tourism is not necessarily attractive for many Caymanians who have a family. They want a 9-to-5, so that puts limitations on there. I also understand that there's cultural differences that put things in the way. So, for example, I want to harp on this cultural thing. Many of the customers to some of these locations are not Caymanian, so they're not necessarily humans go around areas that they're comfortable. This is a natural thing, right? You go around people that are more like you because you feel more comfortable. So if you at a very high, nice restaurant and you hear a Caymanian say, yes, ma'am, what can I get for you today? They go, it's for some, that's the sound of it, the look of the person, and all of those other things makes them go, well, I'm not sure if this is the place I want to be. And not saying that they're scared or anything like that, but if you are a non-Caymanian and you come to a bar and you see another Canadian there and you want to buy a drink, you're most likely to go by there because, I know somebody from Canada who's there. And I'm not picking on Canadians because I have a lot of Canadian friends that are pretty awesome, right? But this is why sometimes you may hear my tone of voice change depending on where I am. If I around my people, I talk like how I am as a Caymanian. But when I get in those industry, just to get away from this perception of I'm different, I try to speak in a way where it makes them feel comfortable, right? Because then the customer and the other employees who are not Caymanian can don't feel awkward, because chances are an employer will go, I'm going to put employees that are most attractive to my customers to serve them. So what you will find is that you go to a bar and there's not this balanced equilibrium of Caymanians and expat workers. It wouldn't have been so bad if it was that. But what you do is you go in and then you actually find that there's a dominant nationality at that location. But that may end up being the most popular bar. Is it because the customers want to go to that? The question is, what is it that the people want? And this narrative that the people locally that go to the local restaurants and all that want Caymanians serving them, sometimes I wonder if that's the truth. Do they want to hear from a Caymanian serving them? Do we go there?
You know what? Can I speak to that point, Minister? I think, please. Again, as someone who has lived in another person's country, and I understand the concept of what you're describing is something that we call mirroring, right? So we often mirror. You should never mirror bad behavior, but we mirror each other all the time. So if I'm hanging out with Jamaican friends, I'm more likely to use Jamaican, slang and terminology, and the Jamaican twang, if you have one, kind of comes out a little bit more. If you're hanging out with your, hardcore Caymanians, you tend to sound more like a Caymanian. That, as you say, is human nature. But what I think really is happening here is we need to, as Doss said, to reset the bar, where when you go into a restaurant or a bar, your expectation should be to see Caymanians. You shouldn't be expecting to see Canadians or any other nationality. And that is what part of the problem is. It has become such a norm.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Who changes the expectation? Is it the employer?
We allowed it to change over the years.
No, I agree. We allowed it to change over the years, because naturally you go to a Caribbean island, the natural expectation is to see the people of the land.
Yeah.
Now, even when you say the people of the land, that in itself is a tricky one, because we're such a diverse society. Of the 50% of our population that are Caymanian, 50% of that is also generational Caymanians and new Caymanians. So there's a lot of sociological elements here that is at play, right? So hypothetically speaking, I have many friends who are Caymanian that came to Cayman when they were 9 years old, and I got to know them all my life, and they're Caymanian. They're predominantly lighter of color skin. It doesn't really matter what color skin they are, but you can tell that they don't have your traditional Caymanian dialect.
Mm-hmm.
And the industry, what I found about the industry is they are more willing to hire, they're quick to hire a Caymanian that fits that model of, and I hate to say this, but lighter color skin, and they don't have the tone or the accent of a Caymanian. And they'll say, okay, that fits my model, the model that I have. And we don't sell a Caribbean island. What we sell is a high-end jurisdiction that will give you the services that you want. So, and I'm gonna talk about a certain hotel today. So, for example, the Ritz. Is the Ritz selling a Cayman Islands Ritz, or is the Ritz selling the brand the Ritz? Because we haven't Caymanized the Ritz. The Ritz has a brand globally that sells a high-end posh delivery. It doesn't say, a Ritz, the Cayman style way, where you can still get the high end, but you feel the Caymanian flavor in it. That's not what they're selling. So we have commercialized our tourism product, not Caymanized our tourism product.
But let me say this. Let me say this
Yeah.
about the Ritz in particular, right? I don't normally frequent the Ritz, but when we did the tour the other day for their grand reopening, they made the point of saying that they were focusing in their remodel and their redesign about being a very unique jurisdiction and a very unique destination. So that when you walked in there, you saw the embodiment of all things Caymanian in the architecture, in the design, in the very carpet, in the posts of the bed, all that kind of stuff. That's fantastic, but when are we going to see it in the people? I mean, I loved that the thatch palm was like intertwined in the carpet, and you could see it as part of like a continuing theme throughout the entire hotel, and that's fantastic. But the most important thing that I want to see being Caymanian at the Ritz are actually the people.
I agree. Well, that's what me and you feel, and it doesn't seem like that's what they want to sell. So I don't know. I can't tell you what their business model is. I'm just telling you what I recognize.
You want people to come here and have a unique experience and know, okay, this Ritz is different than the other Ritz, and this is the Cayman Islands. The way that you do that is the bell person, the receptionist, all the faces, as many as you can. Again, I understand that there's not enough Caymanians who are interested in the industry to fill every single job. And that's my thing. There is more than enough. When we talk about tourism specifically, I feel like there's more than enough room to welcome people from all over, provided that Caymanians are the ones who get the opportunities first and foremost. Kathy makes the point that this type of discrimination is not happening just in the tourism sector, for example, but it also happens in government and other areas. I mean, we saw someone share a post the other day about a guy, Canadian fella at the local steakhouse who was talking about how he was up against a Caymanian for a government job. And audit or something like that, and he ended up getting the job over the Caymanian.
Yeah, trust me, the whole government is well aware of that, and I'm not going to say any more about that because there's some inside things that I can't talk about. But we're well aware of that. But Sandra, I just want to say that the reason why I called him, because obviously every time you speak, you will be not criticized in a negative way, but you'll be analyzed based on what I'm saying today. And there's a lot of things to be analyzed because it's a very complicated matter, and I don't mind that. So, you see some comments on here about, we missed the opportunity, we got to change the law, we got to increase the minimum wages, a lot of different things that factor in to the bigger picture. And we get that. And our job is to try to find the different balances for them. So what we need to do is try to get the industry, the persons who have the key to the doors of opportunity to buy into the long-term success of our country. And unfortunately, I am not convinced they want to buy in. I'm telling you, I've sat down with hotel managers and I go, look at me, sir, look at me. If my people don't get an opportunity, you realize you're creating a generation of poverty that can potentially come back and hurt your multi-million-dollar investment by way of slums, crime, institutionalized dependency on government, which increases taxes, all of these things. It's like, do you understand that you have a moral obligation for your own investment? And sometimes they only can see within the next year of profits or the next 5 years of profits rather than the bigger picture. And we're not talking
this
about
is
a lot
why
of people.
I say, can I pick you up on that point, Minister? And I do have some questions here from viewers for you as well. So hopefully we can put a few of those in. But can I say, why is it that when people come to the Cayman Islands, that we don't offer some sort of, I was speaking to a young lady, I think it was last week over lunch about this. Why don't we have some sort of a integration program from the executives all the way down to the bottom, where everyone who comes here should have a true sense of what the Cayman Islands is all about? So like a Frank Schillings, for example, right? He might be well-meaning enough and whatever, but Frank doesn't have a sense of what the real Cayman is like because he is in this very closed group of extremely privileged individuals. So the only Caymanians that he hangs out with or maybe politicians because he's trying to get in y'all back pocket, or it's going to be the people who are persons of means who want to be like him. So I hear he hangs out with Mario. Well, Mario doesn't have his financial stratosphere, but we know he wants to be in that group. He's going to hang out with Adele Crichton. He's going to hang out with I don't even know who else he's hanging out with, but he's hanging out with people of similar financial status at least. And I suspect that he may not even have an appreciation of what the Cayman Islands is all about. Why don't we offer some sort of a course? Obviously these people need to integrate more, but we need some sort of an integration program so that when you come here, we should have a big brothers, big sisters equivalent for
I agree with you.
I agree with you. Islands for a year, especially if you want to apply for status or PR, you have to for a year have your BFF be a Caymanian, a real Caymanian. And have them take you around, show you the ropes. You know what I'm saying?
You see, Sandra, you hit the nail on the head, right? And there's so much that you just said there because you ask yourself the question, why would you suggest such a thing? It's for them to better understand their bigger picture obligation. You're right. There's so many people who live here who live in a bubble. Mm-hmm. They don't know anything about East End, Northside, Bordentown, Georgetown, or West Bay. They live on the strip, right? Yeah. And
that's why when you're sitting down making suggestions to them, like, this is going to be the fallout if we continue along this path of disenfranchising Caymanians, they don't get it. They don't even understand what that means. They don't see that one day they will have burglar bars on their windows, even in the richest neighborhoods in Cayman, if there's not a degree of equity, economic equity that transcends this country. They're not going to be safe. And for them not to understand that messaging, even now, before it happens, and we're all saying, let's not get there, let's do our part and try to avoid it. The pie is there, and everybody can get a small slither of the pie.
Well, I'll say this to that, right? Offering a program like that is a great idea, right? Mm-hmm. But it takes the want to participate in such a thing. Mm-hmm. You can't mandate them to go, oh, let's go down into the community so you can really understand the culture of the people, the accents, what they eat, how they feel, what their moral compass is about certain topics, whether things are sensitive or not. Get to feel the people itself. You can't force people to do that. And I say that those who want to do it are doing it anyway, because it's not like there's a lot of, I can't say that there's no new persons who come to the Cayman Islands who don't go down into our neighborhoods, go to our local bars, go down by Wellies, or go to a bar in West Bay, or go by the corner by a local restaurant, eat and feel the people, or go to a local football match, or something that Caymanians do. I can't say that none of them do that, but very little do. And that's where the disconnect is. So you almost, if you were from Canada, and you move from Canada and you move to another land and you're surrounded by only Canadians, have you left Canada? You haven't left. You're not in the Cayman Islands if you're not surrounded. If you don't,
I guess you're surrounded by sand instead of snow. That's how you know you've left. But your friends are still very much the same.
The land itself does not dictate that you're a different nation. A nation is based upon the people. So can you mandate that these people know that? I would love to take every hotel owner, every restaurant owner, every sports business owner, and just drive them around our communities. Let's go down into West Bay. Let's go into town in Central. Let's go into East End. So you say, listen, you have an obligation. The profits that you make are on the backs of the forefathers of these people in these communities. And it's your tax obligation is what it is. That's what it is. And I agree with you. I don't think they understand that. And we've been able to allow that to happen. And I don't think we can stop it from happening, because what you're saying is you're forcing people to have a moral compass. How do you do that? How do you do that? How do I convince?
Deandra says the Ritz is full of shit. She went there. They don't want Caymanians. She said she went to 4 interviews and still no callback because she refused to work as a dishwasher when she applied for front desk, where she actually has experience working as front desk. Lots of people calling the Ritz out, including Mr. Amelia, for discrimination against Caymanians. Are we going to move the needle forward in terms of any anti-discrimination legislation even? Because that doesn't even exist on the books.
Well, I know that we've talked about it, and I know that the Deputy Premier Minister for Labour is working on a review on a number of different areas, and I don't want to speak to what he's doing. I can speak to my responsibility because it would be inappropriate. So I would ask that you could formally put that question into him. I'm quite sure his team and himself can respond to that. But I know that we've had discussions within caucus, and each member within their own responsibilities are expected to come up with different reviews on how to solve many of these problems that we've campaigned on. So minimum wage, I know minimum wage is coming. There's a review happening. I'll give you another example. The concession review, you're going to have a concession document, so it's just not willy-nilly to any and everybody, because concessions are useful tools to help stimulate development. But what has happened is the political arm has intervened and it's become selective rather than by hitting a certain criteria of whether you can get the benefit or not. So we're putting that in place. We know that there's a environmental review paper on how do you decide whether something should be considered for an environmental impact assessment or not. Everybody has their own responsibility and goals, but bearing in mind that these things the problem took a long time to get to where we are, and it's not going to change overnight, especially when you're going to be criticized for just making decisions without any full facts in place. For example, the Honorable Edward Miller, former member of Parliament, I remember the debate when he said minimum wage needs to increase, and we need to put it at a minimum of $10. He was eaten alive because he had no factual basis upon which why $10, and how is the effects of $10 from $6 would affect the economy, because it will have an effect. So we're trying to control ourselves in a way of rather than shooting from the hip, come with an informed position. And a lot of that is happening now, particularly at least in my area of responsibility. Like say, for instance, right now I'm developing the long-term cruise sustainability plan, which I want to be able to come out to the people and say, here's what I think should happen. Here's how I think that we can balance the effect on our communities and our beaches and our environment, at the same time make a profit. But I need my data to back that up. So I'm not going to come out with a plan until I'm prepared for one. So, and I understand the lack of patience because we've been dealing with this for so long that people say, I want this problem solved now. But if I don't come up with it appropriately, then we'll be also accused of not thinking it through. Because there's many people out there who don't want the status quo to be changed. So you've got to be able to come legitimately armed with your facts and positions and your policy to say, this is the will of the people. We examined your side too, even though you're biased and you want it to stay the same because that's how you make your profits. I have a legitimate position to say this has to change because of X, Y, and Z. So that's still not good enough because I understand that people want changes today, right now, and they deserve it. But you don't want us to fail by doing it ad hocly, right? So that's where we are with many of those types of suggestions that have been made, and we are trying. And then one thing that you need to do first off is create an environment that is successful for business in the first place. Then you make your tweaks. And it's hard to make those necessary tweaks on the system without it being profitable right now. So a lot of my efforts have been fighting really hard to work with the health minister and industry about getting the economy back open. As you know, the next big thing is cruise. I'll be making an announcement about that later on this afternoon. And once those things are happening at the same time in the background, working with labor, keeping that tight squeeze on the labor market, being more investigative on any approvals. And I can tell you this, if you reach out to industry today, they're probably not happy with this administration because they're saying they're not getting the work that they need. But at the same time, the public is not sure that we are keeping the squeeze on. So if we reduce the efficiency of work permit availability from 100% down to 70%, that means 30% of those 30,000 work permits that you should normally get isn't getting. And we're trying to force them to say, listen, go find a Caymanian. That's the only power that we have, because we can't go pluck a Caymanian off the road and say, you pay this person to work for you. It's just not within our law. You can't do that. And it wouldn't be a part of democracy in itself. But we're trying to convince the industry to do their part. And it's a delicate balance. I know I've said a lot there, and I don't want to overwhelm the thinking to make it sound like excuses, but these are the complicated matters that we're trying to squeeze. And I'm hoping that by the time tourism is fully back up, which I expect to be within 4 to 6 months, if all goes well with the pandemic and we continue to get past the coronavirus and the world moves on, that we can say that a substantial amount of people are back to work and back in the industry. But now this war has come, which is going to create another dynamic altogether to be factored in, which is the cost of living is going to be increased. All of these other factors, how is that going to play on their visitation numbers? Because the whole of Europe is on pins and needles. Will that mean a cancellation of visitors and stuff like that? I don't know. There's a lot of things we balance all the time, right, Sandra?
Mm-hmm. All right. And of course, I couldn't have you on the program without addressing the tourism stipend, which used to be under your responsibility. Now, I'm very much aware that it isn't any longer under your responsibility, but there is a sense of collective responsibility for this government. To say that has been a shit show would be an understatement this month. I mean, up to this morning, I still have people messaging me saying that they've not gotten their money. They don't know what's going on. They're reaching out. They're not getting any response. I do know that yesterday the premier took at least half an hour out of his day to go down to speak to people in government building who, are recipients of the tourism stipend. And they were calling me saying, we're going to protest because here we are and we still haven't received our money. Is this now, how close are we to total resolution of that issue? Are you aware? Like I said, I know it's not under tourism any longer, but have you heard, what's going on within government in relation to that?
Well, I know that the premier is taking a hands-on approach to this matter, as is proven to create some difficulty moving forward with the transition to try to get Caymanians back to their own independence. And ultimately, that's what the goal of the changes were. Have we done that perfectly? No, I accept that. Are we trying to assess it to see how better we can do it? Yes, we are. A lot of the delays are because of the banking matter. I must say that the government finance and the banking relationship takes so long. If you make a decision today from a payout perspective, it usually takes 3 weeks to be done. So I know I don't want to speak out of turn because this is again not my area of responsibility anymore. I'm collectively responsible from being a part of this government as to what we're doing. But I know that there's been a number of releases from the Labor Department, which is now in charge of it, as to the course of action. I think the biggest problem right now is finishing the issuance of those checks. So we know exactly what people are going to get. The delay on that deliverable for the monies is where the problem lies right now. So I'm hoping that by the end of this day, that all persons who are supposed to receive their money would receive their money. I because it's not with my ministry, I can't go down to my chief officer, deputy chief officer, department head and say, where are things at? I can't answer that question for you. You have to put it towards the Minister of Labor, or the Premier himself, as he can override and go down to any minister and find out what's happening. But I want to convey to the public that I know the Premier is taking a hands-on approach to this because we recognize the difficulty this has created. And this is even more reason why we're trying to get the industry going, because the quicker we get the industry going by way of tourism, the quicker we can be able to transition away from the stipend deliverables by way of payments. So hopefully we can get the cruise open very, very shortly. Stay over is doing very well. The numbers continue to increase, and I'm happy about that. I project that we could be back to at least about 70% of our numbers, maybe within the next 2 to 3 months. And cruise hopefully will come back healthily within the next month. So I can't say much more than that. It'd be inappropriate if I did, but I understand the plight. I've had many of my own constituents call me and give me their viewpoint on the matter. And I think we dropped the ball a little bit on this, and we could have done better. But we're not a government of not accepting the reality of our limitations, and we're trying to fix it. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not going to try to pretend like we're perfect. And anybody who tries to do that would be silly. People will respect the fact that you accept that, you failed and try to fix it. So that's what we're trying to do.
All right. So let's answer a few questions. We had one from El Ray. Let me just see if I can find that one again. Let me see. Where did it go? Oh, El Ray says, can we have a law for a minimum percentage of Caymanians versus expats mix? So can you say, a tourism organization has to have 60% Caymanians versus 40%? Is that a realistic position?
I don't think so, unfortunately. As amazing, I would love that to happen. When you go into the ratios of available Caymanians compared to the labor market, what if every Caymanian said, you know what, I want to be in construction, I want to be in finance, and I want to be in private sector entrepreneurship, right? And nobody wants to be in tourism, but you have by law a mandate to have a minimum. That means that you all within that law that you're suggesting, you're forcing Caymanians to work in there too, even if they don't want to, and that's a matter of choice. And we know the difficulty of forcing people, and what that creeps into is dictatorship. And we're not a government for that. So as dreamy as that may sound, if you had the supply available of Caymanians to be available for that, then yes. But we also have to recognize that's a matter of choice whether the Caymanians want to be there. And I just can't say, I don't think anybody can say right now that there is that high of a demand from Caymanians to be in that industry. So making that law would just create many complexities that we can't do. The best way to fix this is to get the industry to have a moral compass of their obligation and try. Because I was joking the other day about going to find a Caymanian who you may think not is good for tourism, and go get them, shake them up, shine them up, and put them in the industry, because you're not going to have any other choice because we ain't granting the work permit. And that's the only stronghold that we have. And we're hoping that stronghold will last long enough that they realize that if they don't do it, they're just not going to be able to cater to their customers that give them their profits. Because the reason why the pressure is coming now on us, with the various emails complaining about our work permit process and this and that, is because they recognize they need more people to service the increase in numbers. The numbers are starting to increase. The good news is I get a lot of emails saying, Kenneth, thanks to the PAC administration for making the necessary steps and things are improving, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, great, now hire Caymanians. Don't send me an email about labor. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully, as the pressure builds up, they go, you know what, to hell with it. Let's just go find a Caymanian because I just need somebody to serve this person so I can make a profit.
Right.
And that's kind of where we're at, really.
Or DOS is suggesting incentives to businesses to hire Caymanians, such as reduced duties for the business. When Caymanians are hired, they will likely spend their salaries within our local economy instead of the salary becoming a remittance to another country. DOS also says, excellent program and kudos to the Honorable Kenneth Bryan, but we wasted a year plus. I feel like we could have jumped on this opportunity earlier, i.e., when we told permit holders that they had to repatriate. So, of course, this was under the previous government. And he makes the point that the PAC government has only been in since April of 2021. Some other comments here. Frederick Wilkes says, Sandy, that's half of the story. I've been cursed at by an expat bragging that he came here and is more successful than me. What a mess. Cousin Naz says, good morning, Cayman Sus Radio. All I want to see is minimum wage go up by at least $10 an hour. Cousin Naz, I hope you go back and listen to yesterday's program, was it yesterday, about the knock-on effect that increase in the minimum wage will have. And as long as you're ready for the increase everywhere else in your life, then let's increase the minimum wage. But you got to understand in real terms what that actually means. We had a comment here. Jonathan says they need to stop telling Caymanians to go online and apply. Just hand them an application. Jonathan, Caymanians might need to understand that most things are now online. I don't know what that means about stop telling them to go online and apply. Just like back in the day, maybe filling out a handwritten application was a bit of a bother. The way of the world, now everything is online. So you got to get with that as well. We can't dictate business practices for companies and saying, well, you can't have an online application when everything else in the world is going online. This is where I think as Caymanians, we need to understand that we can't stop progress. We can't. And we have to be willing to embrace it. So Miranda claims that the Ritz manager is your BFF, Kenneth, and that nothing will change.
Oh yeah, he is my BFF because my job is to work with all of them. And I have nothing against Mark Langevin. I told him, I said, a lot of his ideas about opening the economy to get tourism going is great, and we agree on a lot of those. Where we don't agree on is on the labor part, and I'm not convinced. And I'll say it publicly again, anywhere I am, I'm not convinced that the Ritz, by way of their management, is focused on Caymanians, and I don't care what fallout there comes as a result of that, and it is what it's going to be. I said to him, I'll show you how serious this has gotten. As my New Year's resolution, trying to be more happier for 2022, I called him up. I said, Mark, here's the deal. I'm not convinced that you want to do your part in respect to Caymanian employment. So for 2022, we can talk about reopening strategies and how best to get the economy open, but we will not talk about labor stuff. You have any labor issues, you go to the minister responsible for labor. Because it was getting so frustrated for me that I can see myself blowing up, and then they'll say, yeah, see that nigga minister, see how he behaving. So to avoid that problem, I said, we're not allowed to talk about labor anymore because I'm not convinced. And until I see more actions by industry, I'm going to stay in that position because my people are right. They have a right to call Cayman Road and post comments and be pissed off because nothing has changed. And this comment that was made before about we missed an opportunity. I don't think that that's the case. If we had started training for Caymanians the day after the pandemic and we were closed down, we had everybody locked up in a hotel training, it still wouldn't have made any difference because it's the industry that is the problem. The industry is not doing their part, at least not enough. Now, I don't want to throw everybody in the same basket because that wouldn't be fair. So any of you who are listening, please.
Listen, I went to Granville House the other day for the first time in years. I mean, a lot of years. And I was really pleased to see that our server was a Caymanian young man.
Yes. So Granville House is a good example, right? And again, I want to clarify that it's not everybody like this, but a lot of the major players are not doing their part. So I challenge the Ritz, come on CMR, face my people, and come and show where you are putting your part in to hire Caymanians. There's the challenge. Take that. Let's see what, because I'm here on
let
my
me be
people's
really
behalf.
fair to, you know, a lot of times I do hear a lot, and sometimes it's shocking to me how it's like the same name over and over again when it comes to complaints. And of all the hotels on island, I must say the Ritz, that name, the Ritz, is very, very dominant. You know, it's the one that gets the lion's share of complaints about not hiring Caymanians. I don't know if the Kimpton, which is also owned by the same people as the Ritz, basically the Dart organization, is getting similar complaints, but I can tell you for a fact, the name I keep hearing is the Ritz, the Ritz, the Ritz, the Ritz. So maybe the management at the Ritz does need to make more of an effort.
Yep, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
So Minister, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much, Sandy.
You always taking the time out of your schedule. And of course, it's an open invitation, folks. This program is really easy to join. You can click on a link. Soon we'll be on radio. Slight delay with some stuff for the technicians, but hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll actually be on radio. It'll be even easier to call into the program and to participate. All government representatives, government ministers, non-ministers, you still represent the people of this island. Listen, this is your platform too. Just like Mr. The Honorable Kenneth Bryan can come on the program, share his thoughts as he's listening with the people of the Cayman Islands, so can you. Some of you have never been on the program. I want to remind you that you're more than welcome to come on, because at the end of the day, the people have elected you. So you are a servant of the people. You work for the people, right? The people are paying your salary. And I can tell you in 2-2s, it's going to be election time again in 3 years. And many of you will regret not engaging more with voters. Minister, have a wonderful weekend, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I just want to close by saying there's an important topic that I need the country to start focusing on, which would be a campaign that I'm going to be starting soon, which is we need to learn more about mental health. And I challenge you to ask yourself, what do you know about mental health? It's real. And it's time for us to take this serious.
And let me take this opportunity to remind anyone that I'm going to call him our special projects coordinator here, but you know, Kevin Watler is going to he's already started making some inroads on that very topic. We're going to do a special series similar to what we did in COVID around mental health. And if you'd like to reach out to Kevin, he's probably listening to the program, shoot your details on the screen. Contact Kevin, folks. He's putting experts together from both regionally and overseas to talk about this ongoing issue around mental health. As an offshoot of that is some of you have reached out about being survivors of child sexual abuse and molestation. So that could potentially be one of the programs that we try to feature as well. Now, some of you have expressed that you want to do it, but you're still struggling even as adults with having the discourse, being able to talk about it publicly and that sort of thing. We have things in place where you don't have to show your face. If we need to change your voice because some of your perpetrators are living right here in the Cayman Islands still, we can do that. So still contact us. Thank you so much, Kevin. Still do contact us, and we'll find a way for you to share your story, even if you have to do so in a bit of an anonymous manner, because you know that's one of the things that causes people to have mental health issues, as well as to struggle with drug addiction and other things. And quite interestingly enough, this is very, very ironic. I don't think Renee ever listens to this show, but I sent her the census story to do a write-up on, and what she took away from the census story, the headline that I just sent out on WhatsApp, it says more non-Caymanians employed than Caymanians. This is one of the things that came out of the 2021 census. Isn't that amazing? In light of the conversation that we're actually having this morning, that the census actually, some of their results from their preliminary report has indicated that this isn't about Caymanians feeling like, oh, we want Caymanians only, but it's kind of unreal that you'd have any degree of unemployment in a country which has more foreign workers. But we didn't need the census to tell us that. We knew that already. So there you go. But that's the headline that Renee has just put up on CMR. That's the census story, folks. we'll dig into a little bit next week on Monday and perhaps even Tuesday, some of the census results. Again, Mr. Brian, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And all your viewers, thank you for taking the time out to listen to my comments. I hope I didn't overdo it, but I'm trying my best to
continue always here
to
for
be
you. We appreciate
transparent as possible with all the realities of things. So thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day, everybody. God bless.
Okay. Now, I know that we wanted to talk about Ukraine a little bit this morning. The conversation went in a completely different direction, so I'll go back and change the headline of the show. But folks, we will continue to monitor the situation in Ukraine. It's really, really sad. I'll leave you with, Miranda says, thanks, Sandra, you read it out loud. I'll leave you with this video here from this guy. He is one of the dancers on Dancing with the Stars, and he is from Ukraine, and he's actually in Ukraine here at the moment. So folks, we are part of the human race, and our humanity extends beyond what is happening here in the Cayman Islands. This really broke my heart watching this, but I thought that, you know what, we need a reality check. We need to understand how, because of really one man and his supporters in Russia, which don't seem to be all that many people, to be honest. I guess the super rich in Russia who want to, they've been promised certain things in terms of grabbing Ukraine. And you know, one of the first things that he went after when he went into Ukraine was actually the nuclear plants. That's what he's after. You know, that's the first thing he's trying to confiscate from the people of Ukraine. And listen, the people there are saying, it was so sad to see this video where this mom was like, you know, my father is in Ukraine. We are one people. Why are we fighting our own people? I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable. So let's have a look at a few videos to end out the show. And again, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Have a safe weekend. Go support Cocoa Fest tomorrow. We will be there to see what's on offer. And I think the weather is going to be perfect for it as well.
I'm uneasy. I'm very...
Yep, sorry.
Amid the Russia-Ukraine crisis, Dancing with the Stars pro Maxim Chmerkovsky shares a harrowing firsthand account from the Ukrainian capital.
Yes, I'm here. I'm in Kiev. Contrary to what I probably should have done a while ago. But again, everybody has sources and resources, and I have mine. And I trust my sources, and no one saw this coming. Not that no one saw this coming, but everyone was hoping that the finality of the situation will be averted, right? That there's not going to be this kind of aggression, and this kind of aggressive measures. And is the reality. That's military. That's center of Kiev, right there. Bessarabsky Rynek, and right to the left is the Maidan, is the famous place of all this craziness in 2014.
Max then begins to tear up thinking about returning to the U.S. and recognizes his privilege of being able to leave Ukraine in this unstable time, while also acknowledging others do not have that ability.
Honestly, I'm getting really emotional. It's been a little difficult. You know me, I stay strong, and I don't show it. But I want to go back home, and I realize that I have the way to. You know, I realize that I have a different passport, and my family is far away. And what I'm realizing is that my friends whose kids are here, and whose moms, dads are here, and elderly people are here, and they can't just escape. You know, like I said, I'm uneasy. I'm very scared. Words are, I don't know what words to use, but I do know that at the very least I have a chance. I have a passport and I have a way out. A lot of people here do not.
Chmerkovsky's update comes just hours after Russia, under the order of President Vladimir Putin, began attacks on Ukrainian military infrastructure. In his videos, Max has a message for Russian citizens as well.
Dear Russians, I know you know me, and I know there's a lot of people currently in Russia that are watching this, that are watching the news and hearing the propaganda and hearing this complete nonsense that's been talked about. I am not at this point someone who is pleading, for someone else's safety from a far distance, from a safe distance. I'm somebody who's about to go into a bomb shelter. So I think that in 2022 civilized world, this is not the way we do things. I think the Russians need to get up and actually say something, because no one's opinion is being heard. This is all one man's ambition of just something. And however it sounds, however convenient it sounds in Moscow, however comfortable you are where you are in Russia, I just don't think that this is the right thing, and this is the right steps, and these are the correct action.
In his caption, the celeb adds, "There's always another way. War is never an answer. I will never be the same." Max is married to fellow Dancing with the Stars pro Peter Murgatroyd, and the two have a son, Shai. Back in 1994, Max and his family, including brother Valchmerkovsky, moved from the Eastern European country to the United States. More recently, he returned to his native country to judge the Ukrainian World of Dance series. Amid the ongoing crisis, Mark Ruffalo, Cher, and Cardi B, among others, have taken to social media to share their reactions to the invasion. As for Max, he assures fans he is safe in another update posted to Instagram stories.
Scared bunch of people. It's tough, it's scary, it's a little uneasy, very uneasy, and a lot of pressure, but I'm safe. I have options. Keep you posted.
Putin said he was confident that he had the support of the Russian people to launch a massive and bloody invasion of Ukraine. Well, here are his people, protesting in the streets of Moscow just today under the threat of arrest. They openly defied Vladimir Putin and demanded peace. They're chanting, "No more war." And this is St. Petersburg, hundreds of miles away. As expected and true to historical pattern, police in riot gear cracked down on the war protesters and dragged demonstrators away in cuffs. A Russian human rights monitor reports the police arrested more than 1,600 protesters across Russia. NBC's Matt Bodner live in Moscow for us tonight. Matt, what have you been seeing and hearing there on the ground?
A dark and I'd say bewildered mood set upon Moscow this morning as Russians, for the first time, woke up to the news and faced the reality of a war that their president has been preparing more or less in plain sight for months. A war, by the way, that almost every Russian insisted was impossible because they are brother nations. The Kremlin insisting that it has public support, but we are seeing signs that that is not necessarily true. It is, of course, too soon to kind of get a full understanding of where the Russian public will fall on this, but we saw protests break out throughout the country today, including here in Moscow, a heavy security presence. Across 53 cities, 1,700 protesters were arrested. These are big numbers historically for Russian protests and kind of give you a sense of the scale of it. But I have to say, it is still a much smaller arrest number than we saw essentially 1 year ago when people took to the streets to protest the arrest of the opposition leader, Alexei Navalny. Speaking of Alexei Navalny, he was on trial again today from his prison where he's being held, and he used it as an opportunity to speak out against the war, saying that this is essentially a way for the government to cover up what he says is the ongoing robbery of Russia's future from Russian citizens, saying that only Russians and Ukrainians will pay the price for the regime's war in Ukraine. Now, President Putin did again surface later today, summoning Russia's business elite, you could call these the oligarchs, if you will, to warn them that Western sanctions were indeed coming, but reassure them that he had no other choice. This is the only way, he told his business community, to ensure Russia's security interests after the West had rejected their demands. Shep?
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.